welcome to part 22 of Marvel, Evolve from a Vampire. If you encounter any issues or have feedback, please let me know in the comments rather than just disliking the video. Your input helps me improve, and I'm here to make sure you have the best experience possible. Enjoy the content.
Chapter 526, Part 1. So, you want me to save them? After listening to the other party's story, Chen Luo's eyes flashed, and he instantly understood what the other party was thinking. That's right. Fury nodded decisively. If anyone else has the ability to rescue him, it's only you now. Fury naturally has deep faith in Chen Luo's strength. In that battle that almost wiped out all human beings, if Chen Luo hadn't slaughtered most of the Chitauri by himself, the Earth today would no longer be what they were familiar with, just like the apocalypse a few years ago. Counting this time, Chen Luo can be said to have saved the world twice. Every time the world faces a crisis, the strength Chen Luo shows is enough to make people look at him. Especially this time, as a famous family in the universe, Chitauri has several people whose strength is no less than apocalypse. The existence and strength are far beyond the current level of the Earth. If Chen Luo hadn't taken action, I'm afraid any one of them would have been able to kill everyone on the Earth. After learning about Chen Luo's record from 11 to 11, Fury felt absolutely confident that even a disaster as big as a cosmic storm would not be able to stop Chen Luo in the slightest. And according to his understanding, Chen Luo has the ability to survive in the universe. Coupled with his teleportation ability, the possibility of rescuing Reed and the others is far greater than others. After thinking about this, Fury further, it was the first time he chose to seek help from Chen Luo. Hearing this, Chen Luo's heart moved, and he was about to speak. Ding! The Fantastic Four in the future are in danger. Now we have a choice. Choice 1. Go to the center of the cosmic storm and rescue Reed and his party. Reward. Sakaar coordinates. Choice 2. Don't save yourself from death and witness the fall of the Fantastic Four with your own eyes. Reward. Can integrate with an unknown, different dimension and become a god. After receiving the news from Fury, the long-lost system finally appeared in front of Chen Luo. Looking at the prompt information on the panel, Chen Luo's eyes suddenly lit up. If his memory is correct, Sakaar should be the planet that Hulk arrived at after leaving the Earth in the Nose Wound Crisis. That planet is controlled by the legendary top powerhouse in the universe, Gao Tianzuan. Because of his unique hobbies, this planet has also been transformed into a fighting center in the universe. After Hulk accidentally broke into this planet, he spent several years there. Relying on his powerful strength, he became the well-deserved king of gladiators on this planet and was sought after by countless people. And because of Gao Tianzuan's protection, this planet has become a famous sanctuary in the universe. If you commit any serious crime in the universe, you only need to come here to join Gao Tianzuan's command and become a member of his gladiators, and you will get it. Gao Tianzuan's protection. As long as you do not leave this planet in the future, no enemies will come to seek revenge on you. But this does not mean that you are safe. As a gladiator, if you fail in the arena and your opponent takes your life, then Gao Tianzuan will not stand up for you either. As soon as you step onto the arena, your life no longer belongs to you. But even though the death rate here is so high, there are still many people flocking to participate in this killing game. The reason is also very simple. That is, as long as you can achieve 100 consecutive wins in the arena, you can become the best player on this planet. The strongest gladiator. As the strongest gladiator, Gao Tianzuan will grant the opponent's wish at that time. As a veteran god who has existed in the universe for countless years, one can imagine the opponent's energy. The promise from such a powerful old god affects the hearts of countless people. In order to realize their wishes, countless people set out on a journey to find Sakaar every moment, hoping to join the ranks of gladiators. However, due to the unique environment of Sakaar, the coordinates of this planet are also very hidden. Except for those who were personally invited by Gao Tianzuan, most of the others came here by luck, just like Hulk back then. Thinking of the information about this planet, Chen Luo's eyes flashed, and he made an instant decision. No surprise, Chen Luo abandoned the second option. He had no interest in becoming a god from another dimension. On the contrary, if he could get the coordinates of Sakaar, he would have a way to quickly increase his divine power. According to the information Chen Luo obtained, if he wants to increase his divine power, he needs to kill more demigods. However, demigods are only a minority even in the universe. If he wants to find enough demigods, what better place than Sakaar? As long as he can find Sakaar, become a member of the gladiators, and compete with other gladiators, then it is conceivable that his strength will definitely increase dramatically in the next period of time. If everything goes well, maybe in less than a year, he will be able to grow to the peak level of demigod. Thinking of this, Chen Luo suddenly became energetic and joy flashed in his eyes. I understand. I'll go take a look. After making his choice, Chen Luo immediately nodded and agreed without any hesitation. Hearing Chen Luo's answer, Fury was relieved and nodded. Chen, I'll leave it to you. After hanging up the phone, Chen Luo's heart moved and he disappeared instantly. Arriving at the SHILD headquarters, Fury then took Chen Luo to the command room and showed Chen Luo the location of Reed and his team. Chen Luo also knew that time was running out. In order to prevent Reed and the others from having an accident, they did not continue. Stay here, walk out the door, move your feet, and instantly rise to the sky. Huge amounts of wings spread out behind 680. The next moment, Chen Luo dragged out a long afterimage in the air, and a white air wave visible to the naked eye appeared in the air. In the blink of an eye, he skipped 1,000 meters and headed towards the sky. Flying the direction. The energy conversion ability was activated instantly, and all the surrounding energy poured into Chen Luo's body. The atmosphere on the Earth's surface did not slow down Chen Luo at all. He rushed all the way. In less than 10 seconds, the next moment, Chen Luo had arrived in the universe. Recalling the coordinates he got from Fury before, Chen Luo chose a direction, flapped his wings behind him, and swept forward. The reason why they did not use teleportation to search directly was that Reed and the others were located too far away from the Earth. In addition, their activities in the cosmic environment also required additional consumption of their own divine power. Therefore, in order to avoid unnecessary consumption, Chen Luo still planned to try to save the use of divine power as much as possible. Otherwise, if an accident occurs, even he may be lost in the universe. But fortunately, because the resistance in the space environment is much smaller than on Earth, Chen Luo's flight speed has also been increased by huge amounts. Coupled with the energy conversion ability, which can also absorb the surrounding cosmic energy to replenish physical strength, Chen Luo's speed did not slow down all the way, approaching Reed's position at a speed visible to the naked eye. It only took about a few hours, and finally, Chen Luo successfully reached the target. Chapter 527, Part 1. Slowly stopping in place, his body suspended in the cosmic environment. Looking at the scene in front of him, a trace of wonder flashed in Chen Luo's eyes. About 10,000 meters in front of Chen Luo, a dazzling light shines in the dark universe. Gold and red are intertwined. The light seems to be materialized and twists in the air, covering thousands of miles. Looking from a distance, it looks like a phoenix spreads its wings and is reborn from the ashes. Although he had seen the scene here on Fury's computer before setting off, Chen Luo was still a little shocked when he saw the real thing. After stopping quietly for a moment and admiring the magnificent scene of the cosmic storm in front of him, Chen Luo came back to his senses, moved his wings behind him, and instantly rushed towards the center of the storm. Because the energy contained in the cosmic storm is also composed of matter that originally existed in the universe, Chen Luo's energy conversion ability can still work and come to the center of the storm. The surrounding energy continued to pour into Chen Luo's body without causing any harm to him. As he walked through the storm, Chen Luo's heart moved, and he used his own divine power to sense whether there was still life in the storm. A few minutes later, Chen Luo seemed to sense something and suddenly turned his head to look to his side. His body turned into a sharp arrow and instantly rushed forward. After crossing a distance of several thousand meters, Chen Luo finally stopped, a look of joy flashing across his face. Found it! Looking at the looming space station shrouded in dazzling light ahead, it was exactly the same as the information Fury showed him before. Reed and his team were conducting a detection mission in this space station. Through the induction transmitted by divine power, there were a total of 5 life reactions. In addition to the future Fantastic Four, the rest were the members of this plan. Investor, Dr. Doom. As for Dr. Doom, because he was also exposed to the cosmic storm, like the 4 Reeds when he returns to Earth, he will also awaken his own ability and become the famous villain in the future, Dr. Doom. Although Doom usually appears in front of the world as a billionaire, Chen Luo knows very well that the other person's wisdom is also at the level of a super genius. After successfully awakening his own ability, Doom combined it with technology ability combined to unleash unprecedented strength. Shaking his head, Chen Luo did not think any more and entered the space station in a flash. The next moment, the figures of the 5 Reeds appeared in front of him. Gathering a few people together, Chen Luo thought, and a huge amount of blood-colored shield enveloped everyone. Then, as the teleportation ability was activated, Chen Luo and everyone disappeared in an instant. After finding the location of Reed and others, Chen Luo is no longer stingy with his supernatural power. He has traveled tens of thousands of miles in the blink of an eye and returned to the Earth in less than a few minutes. In New York, due to the destruction of its headquarters in the previous war, SHILD decided to build a new base here as its headquarters. After half a year of construction, it was officially put into use not long ago. In the base command room, Fury was waiting anxiously for news from Chen Luo. Suddenly, there was a shaking in the air beside him, and then Chen Luo and Reed and his party emerged from the air in an instant. After placing Reed and the others on the ground, Chen Luo ignored them and said hello to Fury before turning back. Now that people have been successfully rescued, the moment Chen Luo returned to Earth, in the depths of his mind, the system prompts came in time. Ding! It is detected that the host has completed the selection, and the rewards are now distributed. The next moment, the coordinates of Sakar were deeply imprinted in Chen Luo's mind. After getting the coordinates of Sakar, Chen Luo was immediately excited and wanted to go there and have a look. However, after thinking about it carefully, Chen Luo suppressed the impulse in his heart and decided to discuss it with Tony and the others first. After all, he doesn't know when he will come back. Although Thanos will not come to the Earth in a short time, it does not mean that the Earth will be safe during this period of time. After all, Chen Luo has not forgotten that before the final war came, the Earth also fell into crisis several times. If something unexpected happened to the Earth during this period, Tony and the others would not be able to get in touch with him. Since he might not be able to return for rescue, Chen Luo also had great concerns about whether Tony and the others could successfully solve these problems. Worry. It seems we have to find ways to improve their strength as much as possible. So if he wants to leave with peace of mind at the moment, he can only wait until Tony and the others' strength grows to a certain limit and can successfully deal with the crisis that may arise next. According to Chen Luo's idea, in order to achieve this, Tony and the others must at least have someone who can grow into a demigod. Among the current Avengers, in addition to Chen Luo, Thor is also a well-deserved demigod in combat power, but he has returned to Asgard a long time ago. Coupled with the time difference between Asgard and Earth, it is not known when he can return. Therefore, if something unexpected happens on Earth, Thor may not be able to go to the rescue in time. As for others, Hulk and Juggernaut may also be able to exert demigod combat power to a certain extent, but this also requires certain conditions. If something unexpected happens, they're also likely to overturn. Apart from them, if there is anyone else who can grow into a demigod, in Chen Luo's opinion, there are only 4 people who are most likely. These 3 people are Qin, who has the Phoenix Force, Wanda, who has the Origin Magic Power, Johnny, who has the Ancient Spirit of Vengeance stationed in his body, and Tony, who has the Infinite Elements. Of course, there is no need to say more about the first 2. As long as they are given a certain amount of time, when the power in their bodies is completely awakened, they will naturally reach the level of demigods without the intervention of others, and even the level of gods is not surprising. Similarly, with Johnny's current ability, he can actually cause damage to demigods, but this does not mean that he has been able to fully unleash the power of the vengeful spirit. As the most precious collection in the hands of the Lord of Hell Mephisto, the power of the ancient spirit of vengeance is no less than that of the gods. As long as it is given a suitable host, the power it can exert can even rival the gods. As for Tony, although there is a qualitative gap between his own strength and people like Chen Luo, but with his super genius brain and the infinite elements created by himself, once he has inspiration, maybe it won't take long for him to have the ability to fight against strong demigods. So as long as one of these 4 people can successfully break through, then Chen Luo can set off with confidence. After deciding on the candidate, Chen Luo immediately started taking action. Chapter 528, Part 1. The next day, inside the Skull Island base, there was a huge amount of training ground. Chen Luo stood there and began to wait quietly. A few minutes passed, and the next moment, a familiar voice sounded behind Chen Luo. List! Wanda, who had been staying at the base, arrived immediately and saw Chen Luo's back from a distance. A smile appeared on Wanda's face, and she walked briskly to Chen Luo's side. Chen, I've made my decision. Looking straight at Chen Luo, Wanda blushed on her face, biting her lip lightly, her eyes full of determination. The conversation between Chen Luo and her that night has always lingered in her heart. After the frank conversation with Chen Luo, Wanda has been examining her heart for the past 2 days, trying to figure out her feelings for Chen Luo. Is it out of gratitude or true love? Scenes of the past 6 months or so emerge in her mind, from the first meeting with Chen Luo, to their first home by the lake, to helping them obtain ability, to their first camping trip. These memories are all beautiful scenes that have never appeared in her previous life. Perhaps at the beginning, she was really grateful to Chen Luo, but as time went by, her understanding of Chen Luo gradually deepened. 080 unknowingly, Chen Luo's figure had entered her heart deeply. It became a part of her heart that she couldn't let go of and could never be forgotten again. Looking back on her life during this period, Wanda felt that she had never been happier and satisfied. Although the daily training made her very tired, the thought of seeing him again the next day made Wanda instantly happy. Full of motivation, now that she thinks about it carefully, maybe she had already made her decision back then. Chun-Wei. Before he finished speaking, the next moment, a long-tail flame streaked across the sky, and then Tony instantly fell from the sky and came to the 2 of them. Chun, what do you want from me? The armor was opened, and Tony walked out of it with a happy face. came to Chen Luo, raised his eyebrows, and said proudly, "If nothing happens, I will go back first. I suddenly got some inspiration just now. Maybe this time we can make more powerful weapons, and then we will compete again. Just be prepared to face the first failure in your life." "Oh, so confident." Chen Luo waved his hand and said, "But you'd better wait a moment. Wait for others to come over. I have something to tell you." "Others?" Tony blinked, and then he noticed Wanda's presence beside him. He was about to say hello, but when he saw Wanda's murderous eyes at this moment, Tony's heart tightened and he was speechless. His eyes swept over the two of them, and Tony reacted immediately, groaning secretly in his heart. But he couldn't leave at this time, so he could only stand there and continue to act as a light bulb, silently enduring Wanda's increasingly unkind gaze. Finally, just when he was about to bear it no longer, the savior appeared. List. Behind the three of them, Chen slowly stepped forward and came to Chen Luo. She looked at Tony Wanda and said hello with a smile. After seeing Chen coming over, Wanda's originally murderous eyes changed instantly. With a sweet smile on her face, she nodded and started chatting with Chen with a smile on her face, as if they were close sisters. Chen Luo and the others did not wait much longer. Soon, with a violent roar of engines, a chariot with blazing flames all over its body drove from a distance, and a long line of fire burned on the ground. As quickly several people approached, the chariot dragged a long scorch mark in front of it, and then a skeleton wrapped in flames got out of the chariot. As he gradually moved forward, the flames gradually extinguished, and when they came to Chen Luo and the others, they had already recovered to human form. After seeing Johnny arriving, Chen Luo immediately spoke and told him his next plan. "Everyone, after a while, I will leave the earth." As soon as these words came out, everyone's expressions changed. "John, you want to leave?" Tony frowned instantly. "Why?" Facing the puzzled looks on everyone's faces, Chen Luo looked calm and explained, "You should all know about the previous battle in New York. According to Loki, it was just a group of soldiers under Thanos. Although that time we have won, but if Thanos comes to Earth, what can we do to resist it? I think you should also know that with our current strength, it is not enough to fight against gods like Thanos, so we must find ways to improve our strength as soon as possible. I left the Earth this time for this purpose. If everything goes well, maybe it won't be long before I can touch the realm of the gods. By then, even if Thanos comes to the Earth, we will have a way to fight him." Confident. After listening to Chen Luo's explanation, Tony and the others suddenly fell silent. Everyone had different expressions, but they also had a tacit understanding and did not raise any objection at all. Looking at Chen Luo, they felt complicated and confused. Although they really don't want Chen Luo to leave the Earth, they also understand that there is a fatal threat far away in the depths of the universe that may come to the Earth at any time. With their current strength, facing that cosmic overlord-level existence, they may not even be able to resist. It's all a luxury. Therefore, if they want to defeat the opponent, their strength must be improved as soon as possible. Especially as the strongest among them, whether Chen Luo's strength can be improved to the level of competing with Thanos in a short time is even more important. Heavy. After thinking about this, Tony finally took action. Nodding helplessly, looking at Chen Luo, Tony said, "I understand. In this case, just go ahead and leave the Earth to us." Although Chen and Wanda's eyes were full of reluctance, they did not ask to stay and nodded silently. "Chen, when are you going to leave?" "That's why I asked you to come." Chen Luo looked at everyone with a serious expression. "I don't know when I will be back when I leave this time. So in order to ensure that you can handle the things here, before I leave, someone else has to become a demigod." Hearing this, Tony reacted instantly and looked at the others with a confused look on his face. "So, that's why you asked us to come here?" Chen Luo nodded, confirming his idea. Now among all the Avengers, the four of them are the most likely to become demigods. As long as one of them can succeed, Chen Luo can leave with peace of mind. After understanding Chen Luo's thoughts, Tony and the others suddenly felt pressure. After hastily bidding farewell to Chen Luo, Tony and Johnny left respectively. How to improve their strength, Chen Luo could not help them. They could only let they play themselves. But Chen and Wanda are a little different. As for how to substantially improve their strength, after thinking about it for a night, Chen Luo had a vague idea in his mind. Chapter 529, Part 1. Unlike Tony and the others, as natural level 5 mutants, both Chen and Wanda have unlimited potential within them. As long as these potentials can be discovered, their strength will naturally be improved. So now, for them, if they want to take their strength further, they need to find ways to further stimulate the potential in their bodies. Because it took more than 10 years to grow up than Wanda, with Chen's potential, he should have reached the demigod level by now. However, because part of his personality was sealed by the professor since he was a child, this also led to Chen's current behavior. The strength is not its true peak. In Chen Luo's view, As long as he can find a way to integrate the other personality in Qin's body with Qin again, then Qin will truly have the ability to control the Phoenix Force, and his strength will naturally be greatly improved. As for how to reintegrate Qin's personality, Chen Luo also had a vague idea. Although he is not proficient in the spiritual level, he has not forgotten that there is a mind gem in his hand. Using the Infinity Gauntlet as a carrier also makes it possible to control this gem. Coupled with the help of Charles, the most powerful mind master on the earth. If he controls this gem and inspires the true power of the mind gem, it may be possible to restore Jean's personality to integrity again. The same goes for Wanda. To a certain extent, her origin magic power is also a spiritual ability. So if her mind can be tempered, it may be able to further stimulate her potential, thereby rapidly improving her strength. After telling the two of them his thoughts, Chen Luo continued, "Definitely, this is just my guess. It's unclear whether it will be useful, and the ability at the spiritual level is too dangerous. Once something happens, the consequences will be even more difficult. As expected, this method still requires the full cooperation of Charles. Only a mind master like him can bring out the power of the mind gem, minimize the danger. But this does not mean that there is no danger, so you should carefully consider whether to use this method." After hearing Chen Luo's words, the two looked at each other and spoke in unison. "I agree. Wait, how come it's so fast?" Chen Luo was stunned for a moment and said quickly, "How about you guys think about it carefully? This method is risky." "No need." Qin pulled up her hair and looked more serious than ever before. "Chen, in fact, I should have told you a long time ago. Recently, my other personality has become more and more restless. I'm afraid that in a little while, I won't be able to. There is a way to keep suppressing her." "What?" Chen Luo's face suddenly changed slightly. "Qin, why didn't you tell me earlier?" Qin smiled bitterly. "Actually, I've already checked with the professor, and even he, a spiritual master, can't do anything. I really don't know, Chen, that you can help me. But if I follow the method you just said, maybe it can really work." After hearing Qin's current situation, Chen Luo's heart suddenly tightened. Even now, he is wary of the other personality in Qin's body. Once the other person comes out of Qin's consciousness, Chen Luo has no guarantee. Jean's safety. So before Dark Phoenix comes out, we must find a way to solve this hidden danger as soon as possible. Thinking of this, Chen Luo immediately didn't care much and was about to leave with Qin. "Wait a minute, Chen," Wanda suddenly said. "Take me with you. Maybe I can help with something." Chen Luo thought for a while. Although Wanda's current ability is still a bit weak, even Chen Luo does not dare to underestimate the power of origin magic power. If something unexpected happens, Wanda might really be able to help. So Chen Luo immediately nodded and agreed to come down, took the two of them with him, and with a thought, disappeared instantly. Xavier's school. After arriving at the underground base and settling the two of them, Chen Luo immediately contacted the professor and told Duigu about his plan. "Mind gem." After listening to Chen Luo's story, Charles looked solemn, thought for a moment and nodded. "If this gem really has the power you said, then it may really be possible to succeed. But I'm not sure if I can control the power of this gem. If I fail..." At this point, the professor looked at Chen Luo deeply. "Then the next step is you." Chen Luo naturally understands the other party's concerns. Once he cannot control the power of the gem, then among everyone present, only he, as a demigod, has this ability. "Please give me flowers." But because Chen Luo is not as familiar with the power of the mind as the professor is, he is not sure whether Qin's personality can be successfully integrated if he is asked to participate. But now is not the time for him to think about this. Now Qin's situation is imminent. If it is not dealt with early, Qin's personality may be swallowed up by the Dark Phoenix deep in his consciousness at any time. So if the professor really couldn't control the power of the mind gem at this time, Chen Luo would still have to try it no matter how unsure he was. Returning to the secret storage room, he took out the Infinity Gauntlet, ducked back to the academy, came to the professor's room again, and handed over the gauntlet. Zero putting the gloves on his hands, the professor also knew that the situation was urgent. Without hesitation, the power of the mind came out of the body and slowly moved towards the gem inlaid on the top of the gloves. Under Chen Luo's nervous gaze, the next moment, the professor's expression changed dramatically, and two dazzling traces of blood flowed from the corners of his eyes. He quickly took off his gloves, his chest heaved violently, and his expression was extreme. "Charles, how are you?" Seeing this, Chen Luo's heart sank, and he quickly stepped forward and asked. "Sorry, Chen." After taking a few deep breaths, the professor handed the gloves back with a wry smile. "It seems that I can't master the power of this gem, and I can only rely on you in the future. There is no doubt that with the power of the mind gem, even with the Infinity Gauntlet as a carrier, its power is not something that people below the demigod can withstand, even the professor at the pinnacle of the extraordinary level, if not for the fact that the professor is also proficient in the power of the mind. Because of this, maybe the moment he tried to activate the gem, he would be obliterated by the power of the gem. Seeing the other party's current situation, Chen Luo could only choose to take action himself. Seeing Chen Luo's expression of embarrassment, the professor struggled to pull out a smile and said, "Chen, don't worry. Although I can't directly control the power of this gem, I can still help you so that you can quickly become familiar with the use of the power of the mind." Hearing this, Chen Luo was stunned for a moment. Then his face lit up and he quickly asked. The professor didn't hide anything and spoke immediately. Chapter 530, Part 1. Actually, it's very simple. I can let you enter my consciousness and experience all my experiences about the power of the mind in the world of my consciousness. In this way, when you wake up again, your use of the power of the mind will be no better than mine. Worse. Hearing what the other party said about this method, Chen Luo's eyes flashed with light, and he exclaimed, "There is such a method. The power of the mind is really magical." The professor smiled and said, "Actually, I also have a faster method. As long as you agree to let me enter your consciousness, I can transfer all my memories about the power of the mind to you, so that you can save learning and absorption time. But I think you won't agree with this method." Chen Luo shrugged and did not deny this. Although he trusted the professor very much, Chen Luo had no intention of letting others know his secret. Otherwise, he would not have gone to Dracula to learn magic as soon as possible back then. Even now, Chen Luo also maintains the operation of defensive magic at all times to prevent his mind from being invaded by others. Since he now has to control the power of the gem, Chen Luo must also become familiar with the use of the power of the mind as quickly as possible. So after a brief discussion, Chen Luo immediately took the professor to a secret room in the underground base. After ensuring that no one else would disturb him, the two of them immediately started taking action. Following the professor's instructions, Chen Luo put the infinity gauntlet on his hand, and his consciousness turned into a thin thread, moving in the direction of the gem. Boom! The moment it touched the gem suddenly erupted with a dazzling yellow light. At the same time, an unprecedentedly powerful spiritual impact turned into countless spikes, following Chen Luo's consciousness and heading towards his consciousness. Stab it deep. In Chen Luo's consciousness, the attacks erupted from the gems were as if they were materialized, overwhelming, and there was no possibility of dodge. Gritting his teeth, Chen Luo immediately mobilized his divine power, used his divine power to activate magic, and built a thick protective shield on the surface of his consciousness to resist Bao Bu's backlash. The next moment, countless spikes came to the protective shield in an instant, like breaking bamboo, instantly piercing more than 10 layers of defense. As the speed gradually slowed down, they finally came to a stalemate with the protective shield in front of them. But fortunately, Chen Luo's divine power was strong enough. And with the constant support of his divine power, the spikes formed by the power of the gems finally couldn't hold on anymore, and gradually became illusory, and then dissipated. The moment the spikes disappeared, the next moment, the surface of the gemstone flashed with light, and an invisible and vast power instantly connected with his consciousness. As an invisible wave spread to the surroundings, the world in front of Chen Luo also changed instantly. Earth-shaking changes. Under the influence of the mind gem, consciousness spread rapidly outward. In just a few blinks, the entire planet was enveloped in Chen Luo's consciousness. His consciousness passed through the wall in front and came to the laboratory where Qin and Wanda were not far away. Even though there were several walls in front of him, Chen Luo felt the presence of the two of them. Even at this moment, Chen Luo still had an inexplicable feeling. When his consciousness enters the minds of two people, he can directly contact each other at the spiritual level. But he didn't do that. With a thought in his mind, the next second, Chen Luo's consciousness came to the outside of the college and rushed in the direction of one of the life forms. Then Chen Luo felt his eyes flicker, and the scene in front of him instantly became clear. Stand up. Through the mutant possessed by him, everything around him could be seen clearly at this moment. Even the conversations of other people around him were clearly transmitted to Chen Luo's ears. These people seemed to be near Chen Luo. This kind of immersive feeling is something Chen Luo has never experienced before. With a thought, his consciousness instantly surged out of the other person's body. In less than a blink of an eye, he was on the other side of the earth in the next moment. By possessing another living body, the surrounding scene changed instantly. Scenes such as the Seine River, the Eiffel Tower, and other scenes appeared in front of his eyes. Pedestrians walked hurriedly on the street, and next to the living body he possessed, a tall, fair-skinned, and pretty beauty was holding his arm and kissing him passionately. After a long time, as Chen Luo's consciousness returned again, he slowly opened his eyes, smacking his lips with some aftertaste, and his face was full of admiration. Is this the power of the mind? It's really magical. It seems that you have already understood it. Looking at Chen Luo's reaction, the professor nodded without any surprise and said with a smile, I think you should also know how to initially control your consciousness. So let's start now. I will let go of my mental defenses and let your consciousness enter my mind. How much you can learn after that depends on you. Chen Luo came back to his senses and nodded slightly to express his understanding. Taking a deep breath, Chen Luo controlled the power of the gem, and the consciousness in his body turned into an invisible thread, quickly rushing towards the professor's body. Without the professor turning on his own psychic defense, Chen Luo's consciousness entered the other person's mind smoothly and instantly. Boom! The next moment, Chen Luo felt like the world was spinning. When he came to his senses again, the world in front of him had completely changed. The original bright silver walls were quietly replaced by an ancient castle that looked full of age. When he walked out of the gate of the castle, he was surrounded by greenery and the breeze blew by. Chen Luo could even smell the faint fragrance of flowers and plants in the air and looked towards the castle. Looking around, when he saw the huge amounts of banyan tree not far ahead, Chen Luo immediately understood where he was now. If his memory was correct, there was also a huge amount of banyan tree rooted in the ground next to the hill in the center of the academy, but compared to the one he saw now, it was a few times bigger. This is where I grew up. Suddenly, a familiar voice sounded from behind Chen Luo. Turning his head, he saw a young man with thick hair, a thin figure, and piercing eyes walking towards this side. Looking at the other person's figure, Chen Luo was stunned for a moment. After a while, Tuan said in confusion, "Professor?" Arriving in front of Chen Luo, Charles showed a familiar gentle smile and said, "Why don't we recognize him?" 3.0 confirmed the identity of the other party. Chen Luo did not hide the surprise in his eyes, looked at the other party up and down, shook his head. "Your change is a bit too exaggerated." Judging from the image of the professor when he was young, to put it bluntly, he was even worse than the playboy he was after. Although he does not have a brain with a top-notch IQ like Tony, because he has studied psychology since he was a child, and because he is a telepathy ability person, he naturally has a melancholy and mystery that others do not have, which adds to his personality. What an inexplicable attraction. Tom is really a butcher's knife. Thinking about the other party's current appearance, Chen Luo couldn't help but sigh secretly. But he didn't let him sigh for long. After the two briefly chatted for a few words, the professor looked solemn and quickly got to the point. Chapter 531, Part 1. Then it's time for us to start. He took Chen Luo to the open space outside the venue. Because of Charles's own conscious world, there were only the two of them here. It was quiet, and no one else would disturb him. More importantly, because of the original particularity of the world of consciousness, the flow of time here is much slower than that in the outside world. Even if a year has passed here, the outside world may have only passed in a blink. Such a huge amount of difference, making it an excellent place to practice the power of the mind. The two stood opposite each other, and the young professor talked eloquently. Before we officially start training, we must first understand one truth. That is, what exactly is the power of the mind? In fact, in terms of its nature, the power of the mind is just an extension of our will. If our will is strong enough, then the power that the corresponding power of the mind can exert will also be improved accordingly. But then again, as for the generation of spiritual power, it has nothing to do with whether the will is strong or not. Chun, you should also know that our mutant's power 14 comes from the awakening it will be produced from the body, and this is the origin of telepathy ability. As for how this power is generated, I may not be able to give you an accurate answer, but this is not the focus of our discussion today. There is only one thing I want you to understand. Speaking of this, Charles's face became more solemn than ever before. If you want to maximize the power of your mind and use the power of that gem to the maximum extent, then you must have a strong enough will. Although with your strength, you can control the gem now. If your will can become stronger, the power of the mind gem should also be able to exert greater power. Speaking of this, the professor couldn't help but recall the moment when he was in contact with the mind gem. Although it was only a short moment, he could feel a vast and endless terrifying energy in that gem, regardless of his spiritual power. It is already at the top level on Earth, but compared with the energy contained in this gem, it is simply a world of difference. If Chen Luo can fully unleash the power of this gem, then even if Thanos, the overlord of the universe that Chen Luo talks about, comes in person, he is confident that Chen Luo will have the ability to compete with it. Heart and will. Listening to the professor's various stories about the power of the soul, Chen Luo now has a deeper understanding of this power. According to the professor's explanation, although he can now use the power of this gem, he is far from exerting its full power. If he wants to go further, in addition to further improving his own strength, there is also a way to improve his will. How to improve his own will? Chen Luo doesn't have any good ideas now. According to Chen Luo's understanding, will is a hidden attribute of the human body and cannot be improved by conventional means. Only by experiencing various hardships can will become stronger. Definitely, if this kind of suffering is too perverted, then not only will it not play a role in tempering, It may also destroy his will and make him completely unable to recover. Regarding the idea of improving his will, Chen Luo just thought about it for a moment, and then put it behind him. If there is no other way, facing the coming Thanos, Chen Luo might really give it a try, but now he has a better choice. Now that he has learned the coordinates of Sakaar, he only needs to go to that planet, defeat other demigods one after another, and absorb their divine power, so that his power can be continuously improved. As long as he is strong enough, Mind Gem's power will naturally be more powerful. With such a broad road in front of him, how can Chen Luo sacrifice the good and the weak? Looking at the attribute values displayed on the system panel, Chen Luo secretly sighed. Although he could have the current strength, the system only accounted for a negligible small part, but he was still willing to give recognition to the role of the system. It is precisely because of the existence of the system that he can intuitively feel his own progress. He has no doubts about whether he can fully master the power of Mind Gem in the future. On the contrary, without the help of the system, he will be even more uncertain in the face of it. In the future, he may not be as relaxed as he is now. After describing his understanding of the power of the soul in detail, the professor kept moving and immediately pulled Chen Luo to start the actual operation. Under the guidance of the professor, a master of mind, Chen Luo also saw various applications of the power of the mind, such as creating illusions, memory manipulation, and mind duplication. Looking at the applications that the other party came up with at his fingertips, Chen Luo also saw some were dazzled, and my heart was filled with wonder. With the professor, a master of mind, guiding him to get started, and Chen Luo's own spiritual attributes that were even more powerful than the professor's, Chen Luo quickly mastered the control of the power of the mind and became more powerful at a speed visible to the naked eye. Become proficient. Seeing Chen Luo's progress, the professor was surprised and silently accelerated the teaching progress. Because they are conscious bodies, in this conscious space, the two of them did not feel tired at all. They studied day and night. Finally, they did not know how long it had passed. As the last training ended, this time the teaching has finally come to an end. The outside world only passed for a moment. The next moment, Chen Luo's body trembled, and then he slowly opened his eyes. Chen, how do you feel? The professor also woke up, looked at Chen Luo, and asked. Chen Luo said nothing, lowered his head, looked at the yellow gem inlaid on the glove, and felt the power of the soul that was constantly emanating from the inside of the gem, and his consciousness sank into it. Feel it carefully. After a while, Chen Luo had a faint smile on his face and nodded lightly. No problem. We can start now. This time, the hidden dangers in Qin's body will be completely resolved. After saying this, Chen Luo immediately brought the professor to the laboratory where Qin and Wanda were. Seeing the two people coming in, Qin's eyes flashed with a hint of expectation. List. When he came to the other party, Chen Luo gave him a reassuring look. Qin, leave it to us. You should have a good rest first. And when you wake up again, Takiri will all get married. Facing Chen Luo's gaze, Qin nodded trustingly. Without asking any more questions, she lay on the bed and slowly closed her eyes. Upon seeing this, Chen Luo and the professor on the side looked at each other, took a deep breath, his eyes flashed, and he slowly stretched out his gloved right hand, and immediately began to move. Chapter 532, Part 1. As soon as she thought about it, the gems inlaid on the gloves suddenly burst into dazzling yellow light. As the light enveloped her, Qin felt her brain become dizzy and fell into a deep sleep. After completing this step, Chen Luo's face began to become serious, and he said to the professor and Wanda, Charles, next I will try to enter the depths of Qin's consciousness and try to integrate her two personalities. But I'm not sure if any accidents will happen after this. If there are any problems outside, you will be in trouble here. Wanda nodded heavily, looking very serious. Chun, leave this to me. No matter what happens, I won't let it affect you. The professor on the side did not speak, nodded slightly, and his eyes instantly became solemn. Seeing this, Chen Luo said no more and turned back to Qin. With a thought, the mind gem in his gloves suddenly burst out with bursts of light. The invisible power of the mind emerged. Under Chen Luo's control, it quickly sank into Qin's body. Phew! A clear, high-pitched cry was faintly heard in the ears, and the temperature of the surrounding space began to rise instantly. Dark red flames spread throughout it. Even the conscious body seemed to be burned by the flames, and there were faint burning pains. After coming back to his senses and looking at the scene around him, Chen Luo frowned and murmured, "This is Qin's consciousness space? It's really scary." Although Chen Luo relied on the power of the mind gem to successfully enter the depths of Qin's consciousness, in an environment surrounded by phoenix fire, even with the protection of the mind gem power, Chen Luo still felt faint waves of discomfort. Even moving has become very difficult. This was the first time for Chen Luo to encounter such a consciousness space. After coming out of the professor's consciousness space just now, Chen Luo immediately used the power of the gem to try it out. Even in just a few breaths, Chen Luo's consciousness tried to control hundreds of targets in an instant. In the consciousness space of these people, Chen Luo had never felt that anyone in the consciousness space would have a situation like Qin's. The reason why her consciousness space changes like this is inseparable from the phoenix force carried in her body. With the blessing of an energy level no less than that of Mind Gem, this space possesses extremely terrifying lethality. Even if Chen Luo enters this space without the protection of Mind Gem, it will be difficult for him to leave safely. After looking around, Chen Luo could faintly feel a violent wave of consciousness coming from the front when he looked in a certain direction. With a flash of eyes, Chen Luo immediately started walking forward without any hesitation. Following his movements, the moment he raised his feet and took a step, the next moment, the world changed and the surrounding scene suddenly changed drastically. The originally spreading dark red flames dissipated one after another, and were replaced by a dark void with no light around. In the entire space, there was only the dazzling and blazing flame in front of it. The flames are changing shapes all the time. Just by getting slightly closer to the other party, you can feel the raging heat waves coming from all around. Under this terrifying high temperature, even Chen Luo, who is wrapped in Mind Gem, feels a little bearable. If he couldn't hold back, his body seemed to be on fire, and it was difficult to even take a step forward. And this was without him coming into contact with him. Feeling the high temperature, Chen Luo's face was solemn, and without saying a word, he mobilized more Mind Gem energy to wrap his body and form a thick protective shield. Only then did he feel my body feels much more relaxed. Although he was able to continue moving forward because more gem energy was used, Chen Luo's consumption also skyrocketed instantly. If this situation continues, he may only be able to hold on for a few hours at most before retreating from Qin's consciousness space. Realizing this, Chen Luo suddenly felt a little more anxious. He did not stop here but withstood the pressure from the front. He quickened his pace and walked towards the flame. However, he had just taken a few steps when suddenly, the flame seemed to feel Chen Luo's arrival and instantly changed form. Phew! Accompanied by a clear and long cry. The next moment, under Chen Luo's surprised gaze, a huge amount of phoenix appeared out of thin air in the empty dark space, with dark red flames entwining its whole body, spreading its wings, in an invisible force. The fluctuations spread to all directions instantly. In just the blink of an eye, this wave of waves came to Chen Luo. In Chen Luo's feeling, this power was full of violent meaning, as if it was going to burn the world to death, but at the same time, behind this violent force, there was something faint, an extremely pure wave of life, contradictory, yet harmonious. This force is the phoenix force that exists in Qin's body. As one of the top energies in the universe, if it completely bursts out from Qin's body, it can destroy the entire Earth in an instant. Moreover, this energy cannot be absorbed by Chen Luo at all, so he can only mobilize more gem energy to wrap his body to fight against it, and the consumption has once again skyrocketed several times. Feeling that his divine power was rapidly being consumed at a speed visible to the naked eye, Chen Luo's expression changed. A stern look flashed in his eyes. His pace instantly accelerated, and he quickly approached the target. Tidakin. Following Chen Luo's call, the originally violent phoenix in front suddenly stopped. Looking at the tiny figure in front of him, he seemed to finally remember something. With a long groan, the surrounding space instantly began to vibrate, turning into countless fragments and dissipating like a broken mirror. At the same time, the huge figure of Phoenix also dissipated in an instant, revealing the figure that had been hidden inside it. She was completely naked, with long hair that was as dazzling as flames flying and a faint flame burning in her eyes. Qin walked towards Chen Luo in a leisurely manner. Qin, seeing the other party's current appearance, Chen Luo was a little surprised and asked tentatively. Facing Chen Luo's news, Qin had no intention of answering. She came to Chen Luo and raised her head. The fire in her eyes was burning like substance, without hiding the desire on her face. He opened his arms and rushed towards Chen Luo. Qin, what are you going to do? Seeing this, Chen Luo's expression changed, and he subconsciously wanted to dodge. However, a powerful force surged out from the opponent, tightly binding him in place. His movements suddenly stopped, and he could only watch helplessly as he quickly approached. I don't know how long it took, but finally, when Chen Luo woke up again, he opened his eyes and looked around, looking at the familiar scene in front of him. When he was a little confused, suddenly, a familiar voice came. Chen, are you awake? Turning his head and looking at the professor's familiar face, Chen Luo felt a trance in his eyes. Charles? No. Chen, how are you? Did you succeed? Wanda on the side asked curiously, with a faint expectation in her eyes. Hearing this, Chen Luo was stunned for a moment. Memories emerged from his mind. He was silent for a long time and finally nodded slowly. Chapter 533, Part 1. I didn't expect it to be so easy. Chen Luo sighed secretly in his heart, looking at Qin, who was falling into a deep sleep at this moment. Through the power of Mind Gem, Chen Luo could clearly feel that there was no longer another soul in Qin's mind at this moment. The other personality that was originally sleeping deep in her consciousness had long since unknowingly, he integrated with his personality and was reborn. Throughout the whole process, except for the initial consumption of resisting the erosion of the Phoenix Force and getting close to the opponent after Dark Phoenix regained consciousness, except for the excessive consumption of consciousness caused by some special movement, there was no longer any danger. The dangers he originally envisioned did not happen. On the contrary, after the two people's consciousnesses were combined, Dark Phoenix's originally manic consciousness instantly became extremely tame. Then, under the guidance of Chen Luo, it became more logical and harmonious for Qin's personality. Integrated. The whole process was smooth and unbelievable without any hiccups. Even though he had done all this with his own hands, it still felt unreal at this moment. What Chen Luo doesn't know is that the Phoenix Force originally represents creation and destruction. The two are interdependent and balanced existences, because part of Qin's consciousness 870 was sealed by the professor since she was a child. Over the years, this part of Qin's consciousness has been sealed. The consciousness gradually becomes more and more manic, and the consciousness is occupied by the destructive side, which naturally shows a certain degree of danger. But with the intervention of Chen Luo, things are different. Perhaps because of the relationship between Qin and Chen Luo, or perhaps he was attracted by the huge vitality in Chen Luo. The moment Dark Phoenix saw Chen Luo, the creative side of his nature was activated and was driven by instinct. After the two consciousnesses were combined, Dark Phoenix's originally manic consciousness finally returned to calm. In this state, Dark Phoenix's consciousness showed no resistance to Chen Luo's subsequent guidance, and could even be said to actively integrate with Qin's personality. With the consciousness that had been separated for decades reuniting into one, this also means that Qin truly has the possibility to master one of the most powerful forces in the universe, the Phoenix Force. But perhaps because this kind of integration still needs some time to adapt, Qin is still in a deep sleep at the moment, with no sign of waking up. Chen Luo is not sure how long this situation will last. After telling Wanda about Qin's current situation, the professor was surprised and deeply moved when he heard such a biba result. Looking behind Chen Luo, Qin was still sleeping. A trace of relief flashed in the professor's eyes. As the situation inside Qin's body was solved by Chen Luo, he finally let go of the big stone in his heart. After chatting with Chen Luo for a few words, he didn't disturb them anymore, turned around, and left with a smile. Great, so Sister Qin is fine now, right? Wanda looked at Chen Luo with a happy face, and Taguchi asked. After seeing Chen Luo's affirmative reply, Wanda became visibly excited, with a bright smile on her face, which was so dazzling that Chen Luo was a little distracted for a moment. After reacting, Chen Luo quickly recovered and then said, "Leave Qin here to me. Wanda, you go back first. I will find you after Qin wakes up." Hearing this, Wanda's eyes suddenly showed a look of reluctance, and she wanted to say something, but in the end, under Chen Luo's persuasion, she was sent back. Now there is no danger here, so Wanda has no reason to stay here. After Qin really wakes up and confirms that everything is okay, Chen Luo will go to Wanda and try to use the power of the Mind Gem. Let's see if we can improve Wanda's strength too. After saying goodbye to Wanda, Chen Luo stayed here for the next week, silently waiting for Qin to wake up. Finally, this morning, when Chen Luo just opened the door to the laboratory, the next moment, a gentle figure rushed into his arms, followed by 10 seductive voices. "Chen, stay with me." The time came to noon. When Chen Luo woke up again, looking at the sleeping figure next to him, Chen Luo shook his head, with some confusion in his eyes. Although the appearance does not seem to have changed much, Chen Luo can still feel that there is a certain difference between Qin now and before. If Qin was more reserved in the past, now after integrating with Dark Phoenix's consciousness, Qin's character is more proactive. Take the battle between them just now, for example. This time the other party unexpectedly wanted to be on top of him. Chen Luo had never seen such a situation before. In addition to the change in personality, Chen Luo could faintly feel a familiar energy fluctuation in Qin's body at this moment, which was exactly the same as the fluctuation he encountered in his consciousness space. There is no doubt that Qin has now truly opened the door to the Phoenix Force. Maybe it won't be long before Qin can truly cross over to a level above that of a demigod. Thinking of this, Chen Luo's eyes became even more hopeful. Now that the matter here has been resolved, after resting here for a night, Chen Luo said goodbye to Qin the next day and returned to Skull Island, planning to take the next step. On the training ground, Chen Luo was wearing the Infinity Gauntlet on his right hand. The gems inlaid on the gauntlet gave off a faint halo. Powerful spiritual power emerged from Chen Luo. Looking at Wanda in front of him, Chen Luo said in a deep voice, "Wanda, are you ready? It's time to start." Wanda nodded vigorously, with a firm look on her face, and slowly closed her eyes. Seeing this, Chen Luo stopped hesitation and his heart moved. The next moment, the power of his mind turned into a thin line and disappeared into Wanda's body in an instant. Different from Qin's situation, this time Chen Luo only used the power of his mind to create a special battlefield in the consciousness space. Wanda, who completely trusted Chen Luo, was even less likely to choose to attack. So this time Chen Luo did not encounter when I saw any danger. I quickly made arrangements using the knowledge I learned from the professor. The power of the soul emerged, and the next moment, Chen Luo dragged Wanda's consciousness into the depths of consciousness. Following Chen Luo's movements, Wanda felt her eyes blur, and then the scene in front of her completely changed. It was surrounded by a dark environment, with little rays of light shining in the distance, like gems, sparkling. But she can't take care of these now, because around her, space battleships that are hundreds of kilometers long, like small planets, are quietly staying in place, surrounding her. Surrounded, and right in front of her, above a giant battleship that was several times larger than the other warships around it, and exuded a terrifying aura. For figures wrapped in divine power stood firmly in place, with a monstrous momentum that belonged exclusively to demigods. The aura spread crazily around. Feeling the momentum exuded by the four figures in front of her, Wanda's face turned pale, and her heart instantly fell into silence. At this moment, Chen Luo's voice sounded in this cosmic environment. Chapter 534, Part 1. Wanda, I think you should also see that this is the battlefield I have laid out for you, and the enemy you are facing is exactly the main force of the enemy I faced in the New York War. Did you see the four figures in front of you? They are the powerful demigods of the Chitauri clan, and your next task is to find a way to defeat them. In order for Wanda to be better trained, Chen Luo also copied the most difficult battle he had ever experienced, using the power of the mind gem to create the original battlefield. Similarly, as the person who was killed by Chen Luo himself, the four demigods he killed were also completely recreated by him, especially the demigod with the ability to control gravity. If it hadn't been for the help of the fire source, which consumed most of the opponent's power in advance, he might not have been able to defeat the opponent. In addition to these four demigods, the other countless battleships scattered around this space are not just decorations. Each one has considerable firepower. Coupled with the Chitauri soldiers inside the ship, with Wanda's current power, it takes some effort to deal with one of them. If all the battleships swarm up, it can be said that they can even go head-to-head with the powerful demigods. With such a large number of people, even ordinary demigods will no longer be able to fight against them due to the large consumption of their divine power, and will eventually be completely defeated by countless buried by artillery fire. With the configuration of this battlefield, Wanda would not be able to fight the four demigods, but she would be defeated before she could break through the siege of these warships. Definitely the reason why Chen Luo did this was not to set such an impossible task for Wanda. Under Chen Luo's arrangement, the next battles Wanda encountered were arranged in a ladder-like manner. At first, she was allowed to fight about 10 battleships among them. When she could completely destroy these battleships, she would be able to fight again next time. Take it up a notch. 100 ships, 1,000 ships, 10,000 ships, until the last four demigods. Even in Chen Luo's opinion, as long as Wanda can break through the barriers and reach the four powerful demigods in front of us, she might have been able to successfully grow into a demigod at that time. Definitely, because he doesn't know how long it will take for Wanda to grow to this point. Chen Luo will not wait until Wanda truly becomes a demigod before leaving. As Qin has gradually begun to master the Phoenix Force, I think if she waits for a while, she will successfully reach the demigod level. By then, with Qin's spiritual ability, Chen Luo can rest assured that Wang Tian's leave the training to the other party. After listening to Chen Luo's story, Wanda looked at the dark Chitauri warships all around, which looked like a tidal wave, as well as the four demigods standing in front of them that exuded a terrifying aura, and her eyes gradually became firm. I understand. Wanda nodded heavily, showing no sign of retreat on her face. Since Chen Luo will leave soon, in order to protect everything he left here, Wanda naturally has a reason to become stronger. You must know that Chen Luo chose to go to the universe to deal with the enemies that may come to the Earth in the future. Thinking of Chen Luo under the pressure Luo faced, Wanda made up her mind instantly. Chen, I will definitely become stronger. In this case, I can also help you share some of the burden. After thinking this, Wanda looked determined and resolutely started this special trial in the battlefield of consciousness. After an hour, looking at Wanda in his arms, who was now in a coma due to excessive consumption of consciousness, Chen Luo shook his head helplessly, with a trace of pity flashing in his eyes. Let's get here today. In the room, he laid Wanda across the bed, carefully covered her with a quilt, and caressed her face. Chen Luo's voice was softer than ever before. "Thank you for your hard work, Wanda." As if hearing Chen Luo's voice, Wanda's calm face suddenly showed a sweet smile, like 100 flowers in bloom, exceptionally bright. In the following time, Chen Luo traveled back and forth between the academy and the base from time to time. While using the power of Mind Gem to train Wanda, he went to the academy to check on Qin's recovery. After a week of observation, Chen Luo took the next step after discovering that Qin's condition had completely recovered. On the training ground on Skull Island. Today, the atmosphere here has become a lot more lively. It is surrounded by spectators who have come from all over the world. Everyone is looking at the venue, their eyes full of expectation. "Piet," outside the court, John asked enthusiastically, "Who do you think will win in this battle?" Beside him, the giant, whose height had already exceeded 2 meters and whose whole body was covered with a layer of silver-white metal, was silent for a moment, and then said in a muffled voice, "I don't know. Please give me flowers." After this week, Qin's condition gradually became known to everyone. After getting the news from the professor that Qin's strength had actually been limited all along, they had a lot of questions in their minds about how Qin would perform when he was now fully restored. They're all looking forward to it. But even though they had confidence in their teacher's power, when they thought about the opponent she would face this time, John shrugged his shoulders, said nothing more, and looked at the field silently. "Wanda, who do you think will win?" On the other side, Pietro, who finally had a day off, looked full of energy at the moment. He looked at Chen Luo and Chen Luo in the field with curiosity in his eyes. Wanda shook her head, looking forward unblinkingly, her face also looking forward to it. "Phoenix Force? What kind of power is that?" In the process of training with Chen Luo these days, Wanda also learned about the essence of Qin's power from Chen Luo, so she also had some thoughts about how this power would behave when facing Chen Luo. Curious. Not only Wanda, but also the faces of other people outside the venue were full of expectations at this moment. They looked closely at the venue, waiting silently without saying a word. Under the gaze of everyone in the training ground, looking at the beautiful figure in front of him, Chen Luo nodded slightly and said, "Qin, let's start. Just let me feel your current calendar area." Not only others, Chen Luo was also full of expectations for today's battle. With the official awakening of the ability in Qin's body, just yesterday Qin told him personally that he could master the Phoenix Force. Chen Luo suddenly became interested and took the initiative to propose today's competition, hoping to take this opportunity to see the Phoenix Force. The power. Recalling the oppressive feeling he felt in the depths of Qin's consciousness, he is now very curious. How far has Qin grown to now? "Chen, you have to be careful." Qin nodded slightly, with a faint tangible flame burning in his eyes, and an invisible force emerged from his body. The next moment, a huge change suddenly occurred in Qin's body. Chapter 535, Part 1. Under everyone's surprised gaze, in the space around Qin, a dazzling fire burst out from her body, and then turned into 2 wings made of flames, unfolding behind her, extremely dazzling. Phew! A clear and long cry spread all around, as if resounding in the depths of everyone's hearts. Looking at Qin's figure in front of them, there was a faint illusion in everyone's eyes. Above Qin's head, there seemed to be a phoenix emerging, announcing to the world its coming. Phoenix's whole body is burning with blazing flames. It has a slender body and looks noble and gorgeous. The invisible pressure radiates from the body to all directions. Even if they just stare at its figure from a distance, everyone feels a dull feeling in their hearts, as if they're carrying a huge stone on their backs. Extremely heavy. Feeling the sense of oppression coming from Qin's body, everyone's faces were full of surprise. They looked at the other figure of 353 in the field, and they suddenly became more and more curious about the outcome of this battle. For the first time, uncertainty appeared in their hearts. Ever since they learned yesterday that Chen Luo was going to compete with Qin, although they were very curious about Qin, who was said to have gained new powers, they never thought that Qin could defeat Chen Luo. This was already well known to them. Consensus. After all, they know very well how powerful Chen Luo is. Everyone present was a member of the Avengers who had participated in the original battle in New York. Chen Luo's performance in that war was still unforgettable to them. With that kind of overwhelming power, they simply couldn't think of anyone who could match such Chen Luo. Even after hearing that Qin's strength had improved further, and she might even become a demigod, they didn't have the slightest doubt. However, after truly feeling the pressure from Qin that was comparable to the level of a demigod today, everyone's hearts trembled, and they began to look forward to the next battle. Although I still don't believe that Chen Luo will lose. Since it is a battle between 2 demigods, it can also arouse great interest in everyone. They look closely at the field, concentrating and tense, not daring to do anything. Not at all relaxed. Finally, under the gaze of everyone, Qin finally made a move. Phew! Accompanied by a clear and long cry. At the top of Qin's head, the flames transformed by the phoenix force were burning fiercely. In less than a breath, a huge amount of phoenix condensed into shape, waving its wings, and countless fist-file-sized flames flew out of the wings and flew towards Chen Luo at high speed. Faced with such an attack, Chen Luo also wanted to try the strength of the phoenix force. With a thought, the divine power surged in his body, and a bloody ray of light burst out of his body, forming a huge amount of bloody shield, wrapping it tightly inside. Boom! The next moment, the fireball instantly hit the shield, and with a huge explosion, dazzling firelight overflowed, forming small phoenixes that were reduced in size dozens or hundreds of times, swinging out their sharp claws, heading straight towards grab the front guard. The shield was vibrating violently. Under the impact of the phoenixes, the blood above the shield was dispersing at a speed visible to the naked eye, as if evaporating under the high temperature of the flames, turning into thin, blood-colored threads floating in the air. Middle. Feeling the movement in the outside world, Chen Luo's eyes flashed with surprise, and he was secretly sighing. It's the Phoenix Force. It's really powerful. You must know that the current Qin has just awakened, and the Phoenix Force she can master has not reached the peak that she can withstand. In terms of her strength, she can only be regarded as a demigod for the first time at best. It can be expected that for quite some time in the future, Qin's strength will undergo a period of rapid improvement, and will gradually slow down after reaching a certain limit. But even if Qin's strength has not reached its peak, the power that can be exerted by the Phoenix Force alone is somewhat beyond Chen Luo's imagination. Judging from Chen Luo's feelings just now, the energy level contained in the Phoenix Force is extremely high. With the intensity of his current divine power, he is completely unable to compete with it. If he hadn't relied on his own deep reserve of divine power to forcefully consume the Phoenix Force. Anyway, I am afraid that this blow alone is enough to break through his defense. Wanting to test the extent of Qin's current strength, Chen Luo resisted this blow, and with a thought in his mind, the shield immediately dissipated, and then turned into countless bloody weapons condensed with divine power under his control. The arrow pierced the air in front, whizzed forward, and covered the sky in the direction of Qin. The surrounding space was shrouded in a rich blood light, and the air began to vibrate slightly. Behind the sharp arrow, countless white traces visible to the naked eye emerged in the air, crossing the sky, and arrived in front of Qin in the blink of an eye. However, just before the rain of arrows was about to come into contact with Qin, an invisible force came from Qin's body, and then an invisible force field was formed to wrap her up. Under the action of this force field, the sharp arrows seemed to like falling into a quagmire. It instantly went from motion to stillness, stagnating in midair. As the power surged, the invisible force field exploded instantly on Qin's body. The Phoenix Force spread to all directions like a tide, instantly overwhelming the arrow rain in front and drowning it. Then, the remaining force continued unabated and surged towards Chen Luo. As the Phoenix Force spread, all surrounding materials were decomposed by this force. The earth began to dissipate at a speed visible to the naked eye. Everyone could clearly see that the original green on the land quickly faded and turned into countless tiny particles dissipate into the air. Seeing such a scene, everyone's pupils shrank sharply and their hearts were shocked. This is the first time they have truly seen how terrifying the power of the Phoenix Force is. As one of the most powerful forces in the universe, the Phoenix Force is the embodiment of the concept of life and emotion. The power it releases can even rebirth or destroy the universe. Everything in it, and in today's scene, 3.8 is its most basic performance. But because Qin is just one of the carriers of the Phoenix Force and cannot represent the Phoenix originally, the power she can exert is not as powerful as the Phoenix originally. If she really has all the abilities of the Phoenix, I am afraid it will destroy the entire universe. It's just a matter of thought. But even so, the Phoenix Force in Qin's hands can still exert the terrifying power to decompose all things. Everyone is full of curiosity about how Chen Luo should deal with such ability. Watching Chen Luo's direction closely, as everyone waited, Chen Luo finally started to make some moves. The divine power in the body surged, all converging towards the eyes. Little red lights flashed in the pupils. The light shined brightly, and then two dazzling red lasers shot out from the eyes, rushing forward. Chapter 536, Part 1. Facing Chitauri's Phoenix Force, Chen Luo finally used his trump card, which was the Heat Sight ability he had taken from Chitauri during the New York War. Heat Sight. After completing the tasks issued by the system, the Heat Vision has undergone a new evolution, truly becoming the most powerful existence among all the abilities Chen Luo has mastered. As the red laser passes, the temperature of the surrounding space rises sharply, and the space seems to be burned through by this terrifying high temperature. Countless small black cracks appear faintly near the laser, and in the blink of an eye, they are exposed to the Phoenix Force spreading ahead. Collide apart. Because it is driven by Chen Luo's original divine power, coupled with the terrifying high temperature carried by the heat site itself, it brings unparalleled, terrifying lethality. Even in front of the Phoenix Force that can decompose all things, it is faintly invisible. Luo Xiaofeng stayed in a stalemate with him and never took a step back, although the Phoenix Force continued to decompose the laser in front of him. In the next second, with the constant support of Chen Luo's divine power, more lasers were generated from his eyes. With the supplement of divine power, the consumption of laser was instantly compensated, forming a subtle balance of 17 blocks this force from moving forward. But this is not enough. Compared with Chen Luo's heat vision, even if Qin's Phoenix Force is partially blocked, there is still more power spreading from the direction that other heat vision has not taken care of, quickly moving towards Chen Luo. Approaching. Regarding the energy fluctuations of Phoenix Force, Chen Luo, who was very familiar with the power of the soul under the guidance of the professor, also felt it in an instant. His face was still calm, and with a thought, a large amount of divine power poured into his pupils. The next moment, with enough divine support, the power of the heat vision suddenly increased dramatically. Boom! More turbulent lasers emerged from his eyes, and the surrounding air seemed to be ignited instantly. The terrifying high temperature instantly penetrated everything in front of him. As Chen Luo's eyes swept, two turbulent red lasers instantly pierced all the Phoenix Force in front. Cover it, burn it into nothingness, and slowly dissipate. In fact, to be more precise, Chen Luo's heat vision just now was not large enough to break down the Phoenix Force. Even if the destructive power of the heat vision ability is high, it is still inferior to an existence like the Phoenix Force. The reason why Qin's attack can be completely resolved is that Chen Luo relies on his own divine power to fight against the opponent. Consumption. And finally, after the Phoenix Force is completely consumed, this power will naturally dissipate. But what is better than before is that with the blessing of heat vision, Chen Luo's own consumption has been further reduced in the process of consuming Phoenix Force, which also gives him a greater advantage in the total amount of divine power. After testing out the horror of the Phoenix Force, Chen Luo already had an idea in his mind. In terms of the strength of the Phoenix Force, if he chooses to fight head-on, before Qin's power is exhausted, even someone as strong as Chen Luo will not be able to defeat him directly. Even if he is accidentally surrounded by the Phoenix Force, he will be attacked at any time. There is a risk of serious damage. But this does not mean that Chen Luo has nothing to do. Since it is not wise to fight head-on with the Phoenix Force, then just hide away. You must know that Chen Luo has the magical skill of teleportation. As long as Qin Wu has no time to pay attention to him and directly approaches the opponent to knock him out, no matter how terrifying the power of the Phoenix Force is, it will be useless. As soon as he thought of this, light flashed in Chen Luo's eyes, and he immediately started trying. The divine power in his body surged, all converging towards his eyes, forming two more dazzling crimson lasers. As Chen Luo's gaze swept across, it was like a hot knife cutting butter, instantly cutting the ground into two sections, and then continued unabated, sweeping in the direction of Qin. Facing this blow, Qin's face instantly became solemn. During the collision just now, she already knew the power of Chen Luo's thermal vision. She had no idea of resisting. With a thought, Phoenix Force instantly enveloped her whole body, driving she move her body in the sky to avoid Chen Luo's oncoming blow. Boom! After passing by Qin, two red laser beams instantly passed through the crowd and landed on a peak about 1,000 meters high behind the crowd. They swept across the mountainside and finally dissipated. Following a rumbling sound, everyone subconsciously looked behind them and saw that the majestic mountain peak that had stood for who knows how many years now had a clearly visible crimson crack emerging from the mountainside, and the upper half of the mountainside slowly tilted to one side, falling towards the ground. Looking closer, it turns out that all the original rocks melted under the high temperature of the thermal site, turning into a liquid flowing like magma. The upper half of the mountain suddenly fell, and after creating a huge, deep pit in the ground, it finally stabilized and finally formed a much smaller mountain standing next to the original mountain. The magma flowed down the mountainside, which looked magnificent. Spectacular. Seeing this scene, everyone's hearts were shocked. They turned around and looked at Chen Luo with a slight change in their eyes. There was even more undisguised shock on their faces. This bastard has become stronger again. Tony's face was solemn, and he gradually felt a sense of powerlessness in his heart. Before he came here, after this period of preparation, Tony had successfully developed another brand new weapon, which was as powerful as the Jericho missile. Even destroying mountains was easy. But even so, facing Chen Luo's attack just now, the opponent didn't even need to use teleportation. With his eyes that could emit lasers, he didn't even wait for his attack to get close. You can directly intercept his attack. And looking at the damage caused by those eyes, The corner of Tony's mouth twitched slightly. An attack of that level could cut even a mountain into two pieces, not to mention the defense on his body. When those eyes glance at him, his armor will melt instantly and turn into a puddle of molten iron. It seems that the most important thing now is to improve the armor's defense. After realizing this, Tony suddenly changed his mind and listed improving the armor's defense as the highest priority. Although with his relationship with Chen Luo, there was no need to worry that Chen Luo would use this trick on him. But it is inevitable that no one else will have similar abilities in the future. If he really encounters such an opponent, if his armor defense is not strong enough, then his fate can be imagined. While Tony was thinking in his mind, on the other side, as Chen Luo opened and closed his eyes, streaks of red lasers continued to streak through the air, occasionally colliding with the protective shield on the piano body, rapidly consuming the piano's power. With the passage of strength in the body, Qin's originally flexible movements gradually became sluggish, and a faint look of exertion could be seen on her face. It was obvious that she could no longer hold on for much longer. Under the gaze of everyone around, time passed by minute. Finally, after Qin continued to hold on for half an hour, most of her strength was exhausted. The protective shield that was originally enough to withstand Chen Luo's attack could not cover her body. As a hole appeared behind her, the battle ended. It has finally come to an end. Chapter 537, Part 1. It's over. Feeling the loophole appearing behind the piano, Chen Luo raised the corner of his mouth, and then, with a thought, Chen Luo disappeared from the place in an instant. The next moment, when Chen Luo appeared again, he was already behind Qin, his palm turned into a knife, and he placed it on Qin's neck. Feeling the warmth coming from her neck, Qin was stunned for a moment, then quickly reacted, turned her head, and said softly, "I lost." Just after saying this, Qin's body seemed to have lost strength instantly. The Phoenix force dissipated, and she could no longer maintain flight, and was about to fall from the sky. Seeing this, Chen Luo reacted quickly and immediately stretched out his hands to hold Qin in his arms just as she was about to fall. "Qin, are you okay?" Facing Chen Luo's concerned gaze, Qin shook her head with a weak expression. "I'm fine. It's just that the energy consumption was a bit too serious just now. Just rest for a while." Hearing this, Chen Luo was relieved, landed slowly, and walked in the direction of the people behind him. Everyone came forward one after another and surrounded Chen Luo. Although everyone was surprised by the strength that Chen Luo was able to show now, especially the heat vision that they had never seen before, they were not too surprised. After all, they had always believed in Chen Luo's strength. Even if there is a more exaggerated performance, they are not surprised. But Qin's performance just now surprised them. This was the first time they had actually seen the power of the Phoenix Force. Although they had long known that Qin's strength would be improved after becoming a demigod, she was actually able to achieve this level. It still caught them completely by surprise. It is not that they have never seen previous demigod battles, just like the powerful Chitauri demigods who fought against Chen Luo during the New York War, but even they have never fought against Chen Luo to this point. Kind of degree. Although the battle between the two just now was not as fierce and cruel as those of the Chitauri demigods, it was because Chen Luo and Chen Luo deliberately controlled their own power. Just looking at how dangerous this battle was, just looking at this moment, I already understood it in the training ground. The originally lush site has now become barren. All the green on the ground, even the land with a thickness of 1 meter below, has been decomposed and dissipated under the Phoenix Force. Taking the edge of the training ground as the boundary, within the training ground within a radius of 1 kilometer, everyone can clearly see that there is a very clear boundary between the venue and the ground they are currently on. Just looking at this scene, Phoenix Force, the terrifying destructive power, is evident. Not only the Phoenix Force, but also Chen Luo's previous heat vision bloomed. The terrifying high temperature brought the ultimate penetrating power. As the vision swept across, countless bottomless ravines crisscrossed the training ground. From time to time, there are streams of red lava flowing all around, which looks even more shocking. Seeing this doomsday-like scene, everyone finally had a clear understanding of Qin's strength. Sister Qin, not far away, Wanda looked at the scene on the training ground ahead. While she was happy for it, her eyes became firm. After seeing Qin's current strength, Wanda's desire to become stronger became more urgent. As a mutant who also has unlimited potential, coupled with Chen Luo's training during this period, Wanda's strength is also improving at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even recently, as her strength increased to a certain limit, she could faintly feel it. Where is your current limit? As long as she can successfully break through this boundary, then Wanda will, like Qin, truly break through to the level of demigod. And because of the power of origin magic power ability, by then, even if she has just broken through to demigod, she will be able to have more power than when she defeated the Night Demon. In addition to the strength of other powerful Chitauri, It is even foreseeable that as long as she is given a little more time to grow, she will surpass the Night Demon. By then, with two strong demigods like Chen and Wanda sitting in charge, there won't be any problems on Earth, and Chen Luo can leave with peace of mind and go to the universe to find ways to improve his strength. As the battle ended, everyone did not leave. When they came here this time, in addition to watching the battle between Chen Luo and Chen Luo also took the initiative to invite everyone to come and participate in the Avengers' second plenary meeting. In the lobby of Avengers headquarters, Chen Luo sat in the center and first held a welcome ceremony for Wanda and Pietro. After Wanda and Pietro sat down, Chen Luo told everyone about his plans to leave. After hearing this, everyone was stunned. Except for a few people who knew the inside story, everyone did not hide the shock on their faces and looked in the direction of Chen Luo with confusion. List. Steve stood up and asked in confusion, "Why did you leave? Are there any dangers in the universe that we don't know about? If that's the case, I don't think you can solve this matter by yourself. We should also have ability to help. Hulk wants to come too." Hulk's dull, thunderous voice sounded, and his eyes looked at Chen Luo full of reluctance. When he heard the news that Chen Luo was leaving, he said without saying a word, "I immediately wanted to leave with Chen Luo." "Don't worry, there is no other reason." Nodding to the two of them, Chen Luo explained calmly, "I left this time to go to the universe to improve my strength, in order to cope with the crisis that may come at any time." Speaking of this, Chen Luo glanced at everyone and said in a deep voice, "You must have remembered what Loki said back then, right? The Chitauri army is just one of the outposts sent by the other party. The main force has not been dispatched yet. With our current power, it is not enough to fight against such a cosmic overlord. So if we want to fight against such existence, we must become stronger." Facing Chen Luo's gaze, everyone fell into silence, with a solemn look on their faces. Only then did they finally recall that they had already mentioned it after Loki was captured. The war was just the beginning. As the coordinates of the Earth were exposed to the eyes of interested people, what could be expected was things like the Chitauri invasion are likely to happen again in the future. By then, if they don't have enough power to resist, the Earth will probably fall in an instant. In order to prevent this situation from happening, not only Chen Luo, but also they must improve their own strength. Otherwise, they may not even be qualified to participate in battles in the future. Thinking of this, everyone's hearts trembled, and their eyes instantly became firm. At this point, no one had any intention of stopping Chen Luo from leaving, and all sent him blessings. Afterwards, after simply handing over the work of the subsequent meeting to Tony, the meeting came to an end. After bidding farewell to Chen Luo, everyone got up and left. Seeing the people's backs gradually disappearing from his eyes, Chen Luo looked back and sighed. It seems it's time to leave. Chapter 538, Part 1. The next day, Queens. Because it was the weekend, neither May nor Peter had gone out. They slept until almost noon before finally waking up. "Peter, come out for dinner." May's voice came from the kitchen. Hearing this call, Peter suddenly trembled. His sleepiness faded away, and he woke up instantly. "Here it comes." In response, Peter quickly put on his clothes, went to the bathroom to wash up, and then hurried to the living room. However, just as he looked at the dining table expectantly, when he saw the food on the table, Peter's face suddenly dropped, and he said feebly, "Aunt May, why are you cooking today?" "Da-da-da." May walked out of the room in a hurry, holding a spatula in her hand, and looking at Peter with an unkind look. "What, Peter, it looks like you have some objections." No. Looking at the other party's unkind eyes, Peter instantly changed his face and praised against his will. "I just haven't eaten the food you cooked for a long time, Aunt May. Looking at it now, I really miss it." Hearing this, May's face looked much better, and she gave him a knowing look before Sir Shiran returned to the kitchen. Watching 373's back as he left, Peter's eyes fell on the dining table in front of him again. Looking at the dark dishes on the table, Peter felt his stomach churn slightly, and he wanted to leave, but at the thought of as a result of this, Peter finally had to sit down at the dining table, trembling with fear, looking like he was facing a formidable enemy, and his face was full of tragedy. Click! The door opened. Chen Luo stretched, slowly came to the dining table and sat down. However, when he saw the spectacular scene on the table, he suddenly shuddered and said, "Wake up." After reacting, Chen Luo turned back and glanced in the direction of the kitchen, then moved his head to Peter's side and whispered, "What's going on? Isn't May cooking this lunch?" Peter nodded with a wry smile and also whispered, "Aunt May be thinking of cooking a farewell meal for you, because you are about to travel far away." Regarding leaving, Chen Luo would naturally not forget to tell May and Peter. Definitely, May's statement was that she had something to do and she needed to travel far away, and it might take some time to come back. However, he had nothing to hide from Peter and told the truth. Got him. After hearing that Chen Luo was about to leave the Earth and go to the universe, Peter's eyes suddenly lit up, and he became interested in huge amounts of it. If it weren't for the fact that he still needs to go to school, Peter would also like to go with Chen Luo to see the beauty and magnificence of the universe outside the Earth. Chen Luo did not refuse, but smiled and said that he would fulfill Peter's wish after he graduates from high school. As for whether Chen Luo will encounter any danger in this trip to the universe, if Peter was still worried before, this worry has disappeared since he saw Chen Luo's performance in the New York War on TV. Gone in an instant. Now in Peter's heart, Chen Luo is the strongest in an absolute sense. No matter what happens, he can't defeat him, so he naturally can't imagine that Chen Luo will be in danger. Chen, do you think there are other kinds of aliens in the universe? What do they look like? Are they weird? Could those alien spaceships look like whales like those of the Chitauri? Chen, do you think there will be a spaceship that looks like an octopus? Wouldn't that be weird? Stop, stop, stop. Looking at Peter, who kept mumbling like 100,000 whys, Chen Luo waved his hands helplessly. I haven't been to the universe yet. I don't know what you were talking about. Well, how about I tell you after I come? Then I will prepare a gift from the alien world for you. Peter's eyes lit up, and he nodded repeatedly. Then I want one that looks super cool. By the way, it would be better if it can shine. Chen Luo smiled and nodded in agreement. Speaking of this, Peter's face darkened, and he said a little disappointed, what a pity. It would be great if I could go with you. Don't worry. Chen Luo smiled and comforted. There will be a chance. While the two were talking, Mei, who had been busy in the kitchen for several hours, finally ended her battle and walked towards the two of them with 2 plates of dark dishes in her hands. The dishes are all ready. Let's eat quickly. The topic came to an abrupt end, and the expressions of Chen Luo and Chen suddenly became bitter. They looked at the dark marks on the dining table and swallowed. Mei, don't you think I'm leaving tomorrow? Otherwise, we won't have dinner at home today. Let's go out and celebrate together. What do you think? I agree. Peter quickly raised his hand in agreement. However, the next moment, when he saw Mei's glance, Peter shrank his neck subconsciously, smiled coquettishly, and immediately closed his mouth. It's okay to eat out. Before the two of them could be happy, Mei changed the subject. But we can go again in the evening. We can have lunch at home. As she said that, Mei glanced at the two of them, with a half-smile on her face. What? Do you have any objections? The two of them smiled for a moment, looked at each other, shook their heads, and sighed in their hearts. Then, under Mei's expectant gaze, the two of them grimaced, gritted their teeth, stretched out their trembling right hands, picked up the chopsticks, and moved toward the center of the dark plate in front of them. That night, Chen Luo and the others did not return from the outside until early in the morning. They told Peter to go back and rest early, and helped the slightly drunk Mei back to the bedroom. As soon as he entered the door, the next moment, a gentle and jade-like figure threw himself into his arms. Mei hugged Chen Luo's neck tightly, leaned into Chen Luo's ear, and whispered, Chen, stay with me tonight. Immediately afterwards, before Chen Luo had time to reply, his eyes suddenly went dark and was wrapped in a ball of warmth. A night of silence. The next day, Chen Luo opened the door, glanced at the sleeping figure in the room. A softness flashed in his eyes, whispered goodbye to him, then opened the door and walked out of the house. When he came to the headquarters, Craven had already known the news about Chen Luo's upcoming departure, but when he thought about Chen Luo not knowing when he would come back, he still felt a little complicated. As if he saw what the other party was thinking, Chen Luo said, Craven, I'll leave the matter here to you. If you encounter any trouble in the future, go to Tony for help. By the way, if you encounter any troublesome people, they will also take action over there. Besides, please keep that thing safe for me. If Banner succeeds, give it to him. Craven nodded silently to express his understanding. Because he had already said goodbye to his relatives and friends some time ago, after saying these words, Chen Luo had nothing more to say and planned to leave immediately. However, the moment he stepped out of the headquarters, the sky suddenly changed. Chapter 539, Part 1. Hearing something, Chen Luo subconsciously raised his head and looked at the sky. When he saw the scene in the sky, Chen Luo narrowed his eyes slightly, his heart moved, and he disappeared in an instant. In the sky far away from the headquarters, a raging wave of fire streaked across the sky, leaving a long trail extremely eye-catching. Hundreds of meters high in the sky, I saw a figure wrapped in flames, now flying freely in the air with open arms. With his body freely walking through the steel jungle below and looking at the endless flow of vehicles below, Johnny, who had just gained his ability, couldn't help but cheer and dance, feeling this unrestrained pleasure in the sky. But maybe it was because ability had just awakened not long ago. After a while, the flames on Johnny's body suddenly flickered in and out. Finally, under Johnny's horrified gaze, the flames gradually extinguished, followed by a black tail flame trailing behind him, falling straight towards the ground below. As luck would have it, the location where Johnny was about to fall happened to be the building headquarters where Chen Luo was located in front of him. Just when the two were about to collide, Chen Luo suddenly appeared in midair, stretched out his hand, and made a move. The next moment, Johnny's body was instantly wrapped in a purple-red energy and stagnated in Kongqin. The scream stopped suddenly. Johnny's eyes widened, and he subconsciously glanced at himself. When he saw that he was still in the air at this moment, he didn't know what he thought of. Johnny's face suddenly became happy, and he said to himself, "It's so cool. So my ability is so strong. I can fly without generating fire. Wait, that bastard Reed dared to lie to me. He also said that I can't stably control my current ability. I think he just doesn't want me to come out. No, I have to find an opportunity to mention it to my sister and let her break up with that guy as soon as possible." Seeing the young man in front of him, who looked somewhat similar to Steve, thinking nonchalantly and not noticing his presence at all, Chen Luo laughed and said, "Boy, let me tell you, the fact that you are still here now is not due to your half-hearted ability. If you hadn't been lucky and happened to be touched by me, I'm afraid you would have turned into a puddle of meat by now." Awakened by Chen Luo's words, Johnny turned to look at Chen Luo in confusion. After seeing Chen Luo, who was also floating in the air at the moment, Johnny reacted. His face turned red, and a hint of embarrassment appeared on his face. Ahem. After pretending to cough a few times, Johnny quickly changed the subject. "Who are you? Why are you here?" Chen Luo pointed to the headquarters behind him and said with a smile, "Did you see the building you are about to hit? This is my property." Johnny's face was stunned, and he first glanced at the building behind Chen Luo. Gradually, he seemed to have thought of something, and his glasses widened. "This is Chen Group headquarters? Are you Chen, that billionaire?" Looking at Chen Luo's face, Johnny finally recalled it. His heart moved, and his eyes suddenly lit up. "So it's you." Johnny quickly grabbed Chen Luo's hands and shook him up and down with enthusiasm. "I didn't expect you to be a super ability person. By the way, what kind of ability are you? You look really cool. By the way, brother, do you have a girlfriend now? If not, I can introduce you to, for example, my sister. What do you think? She's a top student who graduated from Columbia University. She has a top-notch figure and appearance. If you are together, it must be a perfect match." Chen Luo was stunned for a moment as he listened to this guy start to sell his sister to him, etc. Chen Luo rubbed his eyebrows with a headache. "I remember your sister was with Dr. Reed. Are you saying that now? Did they break up? Huh? You still know this?" Johnny glanced at Chen Luo with a strange expression and understood instantly. "That's it. You must have liked my sister for a long time, right? I tell you, you can pursue her with confidence. My sister is now about to be single. Otherwise, I'll give you my sister's phone number. You should act early, otherwise don't blame me if my sister is snatched away by someone else. Let me tell you, after knowing that my sister and that bastard are about to break up, many people have secretly contacted me recently and want to get to know my sister. But they are all ordinary people. How can they be worthy of my sister? I don't think so. Only you have this qualification. How about it? Do you want to think about it carefully?" Seeing that the other party's words were getting more and more serious, Chen Luo quickly waved his hand to interrupt. "Don't get me wrong. The reason why I know your sister is not because I like her." Johnny rolled his eyes, disbelief visible on his face. "Zero, please ask for flowers." Seeing this, Chen Luo had to explain. "You should know Fury, right? He asked me to rescue you when you were lost in outer space. It turns out it's you." Upon hearing this, Johnny opened his mouth wide and looked at Chen Luo with shock in his eyes. "Could it be that you were the blood god?" After returning from rescuing people, Fury did not tell a few people about Chen Luo's true identity for the sake of confidentiality. He only told them that it was the blood god who personally took action to rescue them safely. In addition to the battle in New York, as the name of blood god spread throughout the world, they also became more curious about God. After returning safely, Johnny once thought about finding the true identity of blood god. But with Chen Luo's current status and strength, as long as he doesn't want to, his information will not be easily known to others. So after searching for several days, Chang Zhong had no choice but to give up. To his surprise, just a few days after he gave up the search, he would meet the real owner in such a place. Looking at Chen Luo, Johnny's eyes changed again at this moment. His eyes were shining, and Johnny's face was full of madness at this moment. He looked like a fanatical fan. He held Chen Luo's right hand tightly and showed no tendency to let go. "It's you, Blood. Chen, you don't know? I am your loyal fan. I really didn't expect to see you in person. Chen, thank you so much for saving us last time. Otherwise, we might not be able to come back. By the way, Chen, how about I give it to you? No, just sign your name for me. Just write me." As he spoke, Johnny hurriedly groped around for paper and pen. But in this situation, how could he bring paper and pen here? So after searching for a long time without any results, Johnny seemed to have thought of something and said quickly, "Otherwise, Chen, I invite you to come and sit at our house. It just so happens that my sister, Please stay at home now, so that you can meet me. By the way, there's one more thing I didn't tell you. In fact, my sister is also a fan of yours. If he knew your true identity, Chen, my sister would definitely consider dating you." Looking at Johnny's expectant eyes, the corners of Chen Luo's mouth twitched slightly, and he didn't know what to say. Chapter 540, Part 1. "Chen, you really don't want to come to my house and have a look?" At the gate of the headquarters, Johnny stood there, looking at Chen Luo with eyes full of reluctance. Okay, let's go." Chen Luo waved his hand, his face full of helplessness. "I still have things to deal with here, and I may have to make a long trip. Let's talk about it when I get back." In the end, Chen Luo did not go home with him. Instead, after rescuing him, he took him back to the headquarters. Although it felt a little strange, under Johnny's expectant gaze, he finally wrote him a few words. Zhang's signature is kept as a souvenir. After getting the autograph, Johnny obviously had no intention of leaving directly. He then dragged Chen Luo to chat for several hours, constantly asking questions, and from time to time he even wanted to promote his sister to him. Seeing his behavior, Chen Luo had a headache, but it was also the first time he experienced what it felt like to have a fanatical fan. 710. I have to say that although this kid seemed to have the potential to be a chatterbox, he left a really good impression on Chen Luo. In the end, Chen Luo even pulled Craven over and told Craven to defeat him if he had a chance. Get the Avengers as your ministers. After hearing that he could join the Avengers, Johnny suddenly became even more excited. If Chen Luo hadn't left soon, he might have been dragged into a long talk all night long. Watching the other party turn around and disappear from his sight, Chen Luo finally breathed a sigh of relief, shook his head, laughed, then turned and walked towards the other direction. Walking out of the secret room again, Chen Luo now has the Infinity Gauntlet on his right hand. 2 gems, one blue and one yellow, are shining brightly on the back of the gauntlet. An inexplicable wave of power is flowing. Under the influence of this power, the surroundings are surrounded. The air became slightly distorted. For ordinary people, even getting close to Chen Luo was a problem. Since he decided to set off, Chen Luo naturally had to bring the Infinity Gauntlet and the Space Mind Gems. This time he wanted to go to Sakar, and only by relying on the Space Gem's ability could he arrive as quickly as possible. Chen Luo is now able to master the power of the Mind Gem. With the convenience of the power of the mind, it may be useful in this trip, so he will naturally not forget to take it with him. But in addition, Chen Luo also told Tony and Sheen about the location of this secret room. As a good friend, Chen Luo also took Tony's desire to improve his armor to heart. So after seeing the destroyer he had taken from Loki, Chen Luo suddenly had an idea. If this destroyer is given to Tony to study for a period of time, it might be of some help to his armor. After hearing Chen Luo's idea, Tony also became interested in the existence of the destroyer and immediately expressed his intention to take it back to the laboratory for research. In addition, as the armor worn by God King Odin when he fought in all walks of life, the destroyer itself also has considerable power, and only a strong man at the demigod level can barely activate this kind of power. So if there are thousands of people on this side of the earth, when encountering any major crisis, Qin can also try to control the destroyer to resist it. After arranging everything, Chen Luo moved his feet, jumped up, and crashed into the air in front of him. Following a long white wave left in the air, he disappeared instantly. Using teleportation to go beyond the earth, to the moon nearly 400,000 kilometers away from the earth, Chen Luo lowered his head and looked at the infinite gems in his hand that was emitting a light blue halo, his eyes flashing with light. The reason why he did not directly use the power of the gem to leave on the earth was also for confidentiality reasons to prevent interested people from learning his whereabouts. If only people on earth knew about it, it wouldn't matter. If those alien forces knew about it and used it to spread the news of his journey to the universe beyond the earth, then he would be in danger. Since he chose to set foot in the universe, Chen Luo will naturally not forget the person behind the Chitauri clan, the director of the Universal Family Planning Bureau, the man who vowed to reduce the entire population of the universe by half, the Mad Titan Destroy. Once the opponent learns of his whereabouts, with the strength of this legendary god, he may be absolutely unstoppable. Although the power of the Space Gem allows him to escape quickly, Chen Luo cannot guarantee whether there will be any space-limiting technology or power in the universe. Once he cannot use the power of the Space Gem to escape, he will have no choice but to escape. This is the way to go. And this is not the most important thing. Chen Luo knows that with the power of his bloodline source, he will not really die and will be resurrected sooner or later. But this will all be based on the absence of his relatives. Point 0. Once he is defeated, the 2 infinite gems in his hand will belong to Thanos. With 2 gems in hand, especially with the help of the Space Gem that can travel through the universe at will, his speed of collecting the remaining 4 gems will undoubtedly be greatly improved. If the other party had successfully collected 6 infinite gems before he was resurrected, and then snapped that damn finger, and then all his relatives were really so lucky and were all destroyed by that snap, then he might really never come back. Opportunity. Thinking of this, Chen Luo suddenly felt enlightened. It seems you have to be careful this time. Taking a deep breath, he recalled the coordinates of Sakar in his mind. Then, as Chen Luo's divine power was injected into the infinity gauntlet, the power of the space gem was also stimulated by the divine power. A blue light shot out from his hand and fell into in the space ahead. Before Chen Luo could be happy, the next moment, a strong suction force came from the space gem. Almost in the blink of an eye, it absorbed all the divine power in his body instantly. Feeling that the divine power in his body was almost dry, Chen Luo's vision suddenly went dark, and an inexplicable sense of emptiness emerged from his body. His body went limp, his consciousness instantly became blurred, and he immediately fell to the ground. As the divine power in Chen Luo's body was drained away by the space gem, the protective shield that originally maintained his movement collapsed instantly on his body. 5.2 His body was exposed to the vacuum environment, and Chen Luo's body was forming a layer of layers at a speed visible to the naked eye. Frost and life flowed from the body bit by bit. The light ahead shone brightly, and just when Chen Luo was dying, after absorbing enough energy, the power of the space gem was finally fully stimulated. A portal opened, and a strong suction force emerged, sucking Chen Luo in instantly, and then slowly disappeared. And at the moment when the power of the gem was activated, an invisible wave instantly centered on the moon and spread to all parts of the universe. The propagation speed was much faster than the speed of light. It was almost within a few breaths. This special wave was captured by some thoughtful people. As the fluctuations dissipated, for a while, the universe once again experienced waves.
Loving the audiobooks? Your support on Patreon helps me keep them coming. Check out the link in the description. A huge thank you for your support. Now, let's dive into the next chapter.
Chapter 541, Part 1. On Titan, among the ruins, a huge figure of about 2.5 meters tall stood in it. The body surface is covered with dark purple skin, and there are unknown lines engraved on the skin, especially the 3 vertical lines on the opponent's chin that are like knife carvings, which had a different kind of domineeringness to it. This figure was wearing a golden armor, and a double-edged sword was stuck on a piece of gravel next to him. The sharp blades at both ends of the long knife are made of precious metals that are extremely rare in the universe. The hardness is even better than vibranium. The blade of the knife flashes with cold light, and there is a special energy wave flowing faintly on it. The light is far away. Looking from a distance, it gives people an extremely heavy power. One person and one sword stood quietly on the spot, looking at the desolate scene in front of them, silent for a long time. This is the home planet of Thanos, the famous superpower in the universe today, the Mad Titan, and it is also the 10th planet that he destroyed with his own hands after he grew up. Looking around 20, looking at the ruins at his feet, memories came to mind one after another. Gradually, a faint trace of nostalgia flashed in Thanos' eyes. But it didn't last long. At this time, as a familiar energy wave came, Thanos' eyes shone brightly. He raised his head and looked at the source of the wave. His eyes were deep, as if he could see through the endless starry sky into the distance. Everything that happened. Space gem's fluctuation. Someone left the Earth with it. Proxima midnight. Following Thanos' low call, the next moment, a tall and slim figure with black skin suddenly appeared on the spot. Kneeling down on one knee, Proxima Centauri respectfully responded, "My subordinate is here. Pass my order. Issue a wanted reward throughout the universe. As long as someone can find the whereabouts of the space gem, then bring him back to me. From now on, I will give him a godhead." Godhead. As soon as this word came out, Proxima Centauri was shocked and raised his head. His eyes were filled with shock, and at the same time, there was a hint of fanaticism. She is very familiar with the existence of the godhead. For those below the demigod level, they may not be able to understand the function of this godhead, but strong people at their level know the function of the godhead very clearly. All in all, as long as you possess the godhead, it means that there will no longer be any obstacles on your way to the gods. As long as your divine power reaches the standard of being able to absorb the godhead and completely absorb the godhead, then this person will use the power of this godhead to become a true powerhouse at the level of a god. There is no doubt that if you can possess a godhead, it means that you will have a shortcut to becoming a powerful god. If you follow the normal order, when your strength reaches its peak at the demigod level, you can try to condense the godhead on your own. As long as you can succeed, you will successfully become a god and truly step into the top power in this universe. The forest of believers. But then again, if it were really so easy to become a powerful god, then the gods in this universe would not be as rare as they are now, and the godhood would not be so precious. If you want to become a god, in addition to reaching the peak of demigods in terms of accumulation of divine power, more importantly, you must condense your own rules for debut. The The fundamental reason why the powerful gods are so powerful lies in their mastery of rules. Definitely, the rule here is not to master the rules in this universe. If you can really achieve this level, I am afraid that you have surpassed the gods and come to another level. The rules mastered by the powerful gods are the embodiment of the characteristics of the divine power in their bodies. Just like through the divine power of thunder, they can extract the rules of thunder and lightning to form the thunder godhead. After integrating this kind of godhead into a god, he can become a god who can control thunder and lightning. It is easy to strike out a thunderbolt at will and explode a small planet with one blow. Although this kind of rule cannot be compared with the rules that really exist in the universe, it can also affect all areas within the coverage of its divine power. Once a powerful god exerts all his strength, it can affect the area of thousands of miles or even hundreds of millions of miles. Will be enveloped by its domain. Under this level of power, except for beings of the same level, all other beings below gods would be completely destroyed in an instant as long as they withstand a blow from a powerful god. The power gap between the two is simply unbelievable. But then again, if you want to become a god and condense a godhead that is unique to you, the difficulty is far beyond the imagination of others. First of all, as the first step to condense the godhead, it has firmly blocked countless peak demigods from the door. Divine body. To put it simply, you can become a demigod simply by relying on your physique. Even if you don't rely on divine power, you can compete with a strong demigod just by relying on your physical strength. Only if you meet these conditions, only then can we meet the preliminary requirements for condensing the divine personality. Such a requirement sounds simple, but in fact, there are very few beings in this universe who have achieved the demigod level, and those who can achieve the divine body. This shows how difficult it is. After all, these demigods are not like Chen Luo, who has a system around them. They can successfully break through the body by completing system tasks. You must know that even a being with an amazing physique like Hulk Juggernaut cannot rely on his own strength to break through to the demigod level, let alone others. If you want to improve your physical fitness, in addition to years of physical training, you also need to rely on those treasures and artifacts in the universe that can improve your physical fitness. But how can rare treasures of that level be so easy to find? And there are quite a few of them in the world. In the hands of those powerful gods, it is even more difficult to obtain 227. As time goes by, it is not surprising that the number of divine bodies has become less and less. Just breaking through the first level is already so difficult, let alone the second level and the third level. The difficulty of each level is no less than that of the first level. In the selection of these three levels, now, if you want to rely on your own strength to become a god, you can imagine how difficult it is. It is precisely because it is too difficult to rely on oneself to condense the godhead. So for those strong demigods, the second way gradually emerged. Absorb the divinity left by the predecessors and become a god. There is no doubt that compared with the most orthodox method, this method is equivalent to taking a shortcut. Similarly, because of this, if you use this method to achieve godhood, there must be some flaws. Not only will they be weaker in strength than those who have become gods on their own, but most importantly, the divine power in their bodies will also change due to the integration of the godhead that does not originally belong to them, towards the characteristics of the godhead. Change. If you are lucky and meet someone with attributes similar to your own, it is okay. But if you are unlucky, the godhead characteristics you get are completely different from the characteristics of your original divine power. Not only is the integration success rate pitifully low, but even if it succeeds in the end, its strength is the worst of all gods. It can even be said that for gods who have achieved through this method, their future path to ascent has been completely blocked, and there is no room for further progress. Chapter 542, Part 1. But no matter what, even if this method has various flaws, the temptation to become a powerful god is absolutely fatal. Even the worst among the gods is only compared to other gods. For those demigods, and there is still an absolute gap, like a chasm, in the following existence. And even if this is a simple method, because the number of powerful gods in the universe is too rare, and the gods have infinite lives, the probability of finding a godhead that can only be shed when the god falls, the probability is even more so small that it's almost negligible. Therefore, under the obstacles of these many levels, if you want to achieve the path of becoming a god by integrating your godhood, there are also very few people who succeed. Even for Thanos, who is the top powerhouse in the universe, a godhead still has huge amounts of value. But this value is still inferior to infinite gems. Therefore, after sensing that the space gem had left the Earth and came to the universe, in order to realize his plan as soon as possible, Thanos immediately decided to issue a huge reward so that the forces in the entire universe mobilized to find the whereabouts of the infinite gems for him. For those strong at the demigod level, infinite gems are precious, but if they are not carried by an artifact like the Infinity Gauntlet, they cannot use it even if it is given to them. Instead of this, it is better to use it to exchange for Godhead from Thanos, so as to let yourself achieve the realm of gods, which is much more cost-effective. The moment Thanos finished speaking, he was half kneeling in front of him. As one of Thanos' 4 generals and a half-peak person, Proxima Midnight inevitably felt a strong desire. Without concealing the emotion on his face, he lowered his head and asked respectfully, "Chief, please ask if we can also. I just want the results. You can do whatever else you want." Before he finished speaking, Thanos waved his hand casually, then turned around and looked at the ruins in front of him, obviously not intending to say more. My subordinates understand, although Thanos didn't say much, she obviously understood what he meant, suppressed the heat in her heart, and walked away. Soon, as a piece of news came out from Titan, in an instant, the entire universe fell into a boil. "Hey, have you heard?" The Mad Titan suddenly spoke. "If we can find the whereabouts of the infinite gems and present the gems, we can get the legendary godhood as a reward." "What? Godhead? Is this the Godhead I thought of?" After hearing the news, some people were stunned and their faces were shocked. "That's right," someone nodded and said with enthusiasm on his face. "Now that the news is spread, if I can find the infinite gems and get a Godhead, wouldn't it be possible for me to become a legendary god? Don't think too much. Even if you find infinite gems, it's not something that we people can have. After all, we haven't even reached demigods yet. Let me see. The rewards this time will belong to those powerful demigods in the end." "That's not necessarily true," someone retorted with a look of unwillingness. "Don't you know that there are 6 legendary infinite gems in total? Maybe I'm lucky and can find one of them." "That's right. If I find the infinite gems and successfully switch to the Godhead, I will find a place where no one is and hide. When I successfully break through the demigods, won't I be able to start trying to integrate the Godhead? As long as I can, if I succeed, I will have a place among the top powerhouses in the future universe." Everyone was talking a lot with different expressions. Surprised, puzzled, excited, greedy, all kinds of things, but it was obvious that as the news spread in the universe, it immediately caused an uproar. Countless people are gearing up for it and embarking on a journey to find infinite gems with an exciting mood. On a planet that was completely covered in steel and looked a bit dilapidated, a trial-type battleship that was several kilometers in size and resembled large mountains was located on it. Inside the battleship, on both sides of a long steel passage, there were huge amounts of steel cages, and waves of terrifying roars could be heard from time to time. When I came to one of the portals and looked inside, I saw a strange creature that was about tens of meters in size and shaped like a Tyrannosaurus Rex entrenched inside. However, what was different from ordinary creatures was that the whole body of this creature was made of metal, with little yellow lights flashing in its eyes. It looked up to the sky and roared, and the sound shook all directions. As if being triggered by this roar, there were also roars in other cages around, one after another, adding a bit of terror to the environment. Passing through the steel jungle, I came to the front of the battleship, which is also where the battleship's cockpit is. When I came to the cockpit, I saw a figure sleeping in the huge amounts of steel thrown at the very front. Coming closer, I saw that this figure was more than 10 meters tall. Like the previous dinosaurs, its entire body was made of metal. Its silver-white skin shone under the rays of the sun, even if it was just standing quietly. Wherever they are, they give people an extremely heavy power. Toot toot. Suddenly, along with a rapid sound, on the screen in front of the cockpit, a specially encrypted message came from the depths of the distant universe, and then quickly appeared on the screen. As if being awakened by this voice, the figure on the throne suddenly shook. Then, the figure that had been sleeping for an unknown period of time finally woke up and slowly opened its eyes, with those electronic eyes shining with azure blue light. Turn slightly, and then fall to the screen in front. Looking at the information displayed on the screen, suddenly, the figure suddenly paused, and then a surprised voice sounded. "Infinite gems? Godhead, to come up with such a reward is truly worthy of the overlord of the universe. Such a reward is already worth the trip." A touch of human greed appeared on the face made of steel. Thinking about the reward this time, the figure suddenly made a decision in his heart. After sleeping for so long, it's time to set off. The Godhead must belong to me. After saying that, the figure stretched out his palm and landed on the second screen in front. Verification information. Verification successful. Confinement captain, please issue your order. Let's go to Xander. I think there should be the information I need there. Yes, Captain. Boom. The long quiet warship suddenly shook. In the center of the ship, huge amounts of engines suddenly started. The ship slowly drove away from the planet, and then, under the control of artificial intelligence, crashed into the dark, cosmic environment ahead, driving quickly towards the destination. Chapter 543, Part 1. In the dark and cold universe, as dots of blue light flash across, A fleet is traveling through the universe at extremely fast speeds, heading towards its destination. Taking a closer look, I saw that each battleship in this fleet was oval in shape, and the metal exterior looked extremely modeled. There were signs of repairs from time to time throughout the hull, and even the energy tail flames at the tail of the hull were all the same. There was a flash, and black smoke rose up in it, looking miserable. Despite the miserable appearance of this fleet, in fact, this fleet is notorious even in the entire universe. If not for other reasons, the name Predator alone can explain everything. As the captain of this Predator fleet, Yondu Udanta, with his extraordinary strength at the pinnacle and the fleet in his hands, is more than capable of running rampant as long as there are no demigods or above. The entire universe is causing headaches for all major forces in the universe. Although there are no strong men at the demigod level in this fleet, they still have their own advantages. After all, unlike other major forces, the Predator does not have a fixed planet as its territory. Relying on its own flexible characteristics, coupled with its ability to move in the universe at all times, it makes it impossible for all major forces to catch it. The other party could only hold his nose and acquiesce to the other party's existence. Because there are also strong men at the demigod level among the major forces in the universe. Although there is no way to find traces of these predators in the universe, as long as they are in charge, the predators will not dare to take the initiative to attack the opponent's main star. As time went by, a certain tacit understanding was formed between the two. As long as these predators did not go too far, they would not invest much energy in them. But now, as a message comes from Titan, this invisible tacit understanding is about to be broken. At the front of the fleet, the interior of the battleship, which was obviously several times larger than the other battleships, was in a state of excitement. Brothers, let us raise a toast together to celebrate this victory. In the central hall of the ship, a fierce-looking man with blue skin, a red decoration on his head, and a brown coat was holding the wine glass in his hand high, looking at the people in front of him and laughing loudly. To the leader! The crowd all raised their wine glasses and pointed them at the man in the lead. Their eyes were full of fanaticism, and they roared. Then they drank the liquor in their hands, and the atmosphere became extremely heated in an instant. Just yesterday, under the leadership of Yondu, after a battle, they successfully intercepted the supplies of a caravan heading to Xander. They gain a lot of money. If they sell this batch of goods, they will definitely get a lot of wealth. It is precisely because of such a harvest that Yondu and others can't wait to hold a grand banquet, and 10 days have passed since the banquet started. In this day, Yondu and others drank countless spirits. If these people's physiques were not beyond ordinary people, they would have died of drunkenness. Until now, as the last barrel of wine stored in the fleet has been consumed, the banquet has finally come to an end. He held up the wine glass in his hand, turned his palm over, looked at the bottomed wine glass in his hand, and tried to pour it. After finding nothing in the end, Yondu swayed, threw the wine glass aside, looked at the crowd, and a look appeared on his face. With a blush on his face, he said drunkenly, "Everyone, since we are all out of wine, let's hold the banquet here first. Wait until we sell this batch of goods, and then continue the banquet." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone's eyes lit up and they roared loudly, and the atmosphere suddenly became more enthusiastic. Nodding with satisfaction, Yondu waved his hand, and just as he was about to speak and let everyone disperse, suddenly, an exclamation came from not far away. Subconsciously turning his head, when he saw the figure not far away, Yondu said angrily, "Coil, what are you kidding about?" Wherever Yondu looked, a man about 1.8 meters tall with blonde hair and blue eyes and a strong build, who looked just like a human being, was there. As if he had heard some news, his mouth open wide, his face full of hidden expressions, constantly surprised. Hearing Yondu's voice, Coil perked up, turned his head, and said loudly with excitement, "Yondu, big news! Big news!" Just now a message came from Titan. As long as someone can find the whereabouts of infinite gems, they can exchange these gems for a godhead on Titan. What did you say? Upon hearing the news, the originally lively atmosphere in the venue suddenly fell into a dead silence. Everyone turned their heads and stared at Quill in stunned silence. After coming back to his senses, stimulated by the news, Yondu's head suddenly cleared up a little, his eyes widened, and he looked at Quill. "Quill, are you telling the truth?" "It's definitely true." Without saying a word, Quill turned the volume of the listening device in front of him to the maximum, and then played the message again. This time, after everyone heard the message clearly, there was silence for a while, and then the atmosphere instantly became heated. "Chief," someone looked at Yondu with excitement. "If we can find an infinite gems and get a godhead, wouldn't you be able to become a god, leader? If this is the case, we will be able to enter and exit the main stars of those big forces at will in the future, right?" "What's that?" Someone snorted with disdain, his eyes full of fanaticism. If the leader can become a powerful god, even if their main star is taken away, they will not dare to say anything. If it can really be realized, then when the time comes, we ourselves can become the top force in the universe. That's right. Maybe we can be like the Mad Titan and become a force at the level of the overlord of the universe. Thinking of this, everyone's hearts instantly became extremely hot. In their fleet, there are not even strong men at the demigod level. Existences at that level can only be found among the major forces in the universe, or the overlords of the universe like Thanos. Sitting in charge, only those with a demigod level can truly rank high in the universe. In fact, their Predator fleet used to be a member of a major force in the universe, but because of a conflict between Yondu and the Predator executives over something, they were driven out and have been wandering around the universe as a wandering force ever since. But even so, because it still carries the title of Predator, it is the real reason why the big forces with strong demigods did not kill this fleet. For this, Yondu and the others are also well aware of this. Right. Demigods possess this level of intimidation, let alone gods. It is precisely because he understands the terror of the powerful at the level of gods that when he learned that he also had the opportunity to become a god, even Yondu, who had always been calm, could not help but feel a little fiery in his eyes at this moment. He just thought about it for less than a breath. The decision was made in an instant. Chapter 544, Part 1. Everyone. Yondu clapped his palms to attract everyone's attention, and then said, "Our plans may have to change next. After we finish resting this time, we will also join in this operation." As soon as he finished speaking, the scene was filled with excitement. Huge amounts of cheers rang out. Everyone raised their arms, their faces full of excitement and fanaticism. Obviously, under the temptation of possibly obtaining the godhead, everyone present was able to calm down. Coupled with the stimulation of alcohol just now, everyone's faces turned red with excitement. They were gearing up, eager to try, and eager to start taking action immediately. Seeing everyone's reaction, Yondu nodded with satisfaction, then turned his eyes and looked in Quill's direction. "Ki?" Hearing Yondu's call, Quill rolled his eyes and asked in confusion, "Yondu, what's the matter?" "Boy, you can separate from us first. Go to Xander and find out the news about the infinite gems first. Then come back after you get the news. Do you understand?" The reason why Quill was allowed to go was because Yondu had no choice but to do so. After all, everyone in their fleet except Quill was on the statistical lists of the major forces. If it were okay in the universe, relying on the mobility of the fleet, as long as the strong demigods did not come out, they would not be afraid of being hunted by the major forces. But if they were to come to the main stars of the major forces in person, they would probably be caught on the spot in the next moment. Arrest. So at this time, Quill's role is also reflected. As long as they need any information, they will send Quill to find out the information. Quill has already been familiar with this, and after hearing Yondu's request, there was no trace of panic on his face, and he immediately nodded in agreement. "No problem. Just leave it to me." Hearing Quill's answer, Yondu nodded reassuringly, patted his shoulder hard, and said nothing more. Although his silly son was sometimes unreliable, Yondu believed that Quill would not let slip in this kind of thing, so he naturally did not doubt anything. After assigning the task, Yondu immediately returned to the room and began to rest, preparing to recharge for the next action. Not long after, as everyone else in the ship cabin went back to rest, only Quill was left in place. Looking at the backs of everyone leaving, Quill turned his head to look at the listening device just now. He didn't know what he thought of, and the corners of his mouth gradually drew a faint arc. "Infinite gems? Sounds interesting." On the other side, on a planet covered by vegetation, deep in a dense forest, two figures, one large and one small, were standing in it. The short figure among them looked only about half a meter tall. It had brown hair, a triangular-shaped head, and a furry tail swinging around behind it. It looked somewhat similar to a raccoon on Earth. The only difference from ordinary raccoons is that this creature is sitting cross-legged on one of the boulders at the moment, holding a transparent tablet in its hand. Information appears on the tablet, and its hands are quickly swiping on the screen, flexibly. Extremely, it looks like I really want to have wisdom, but the other figure is different. The whole body is nearly 3 meters long. The body seems to be made of trees, with countless dark green roots twining around it. It also has limbs like humans. The body looks like a huge amount of tree stump, and the face is a face similar to that of humans. The facial features, overall, look like a tree man with life. Halt! Look! Suddenly, this raccoon-like creature seemed to have discovered something. A hint of surprise flashed in its eyes. It raised its head and looked in the direction of the tree man and called out loudly. "Halt!" Hearing this, the tree man named Groot slowly turned his head, scratched his head, and looked at the other person blankly. At the same time, from the tree trunk above Groot's head, there were crisp chirpings of birds, as if urging something. Hearing this voice, Groot immediately had no intention of continuing to reply. He turned around quickly, stretched out his hands, and branches spread along the palms of his hands, then turned into a small bird's nest, firmly attached to the trunk, and looked very solid. Squeak! Looking at the sudden appearance of a bird's nest in front of him, several magpie-like birds began to jump up and down on the tree trunks and sent out crisp chirps in the direction of Groot, as if to express their gratitude. One by one, the birds lived in the bird's nest that Groot built for them and felt around. They chirped and chirped, and the chirps were full of joy. Zero, please ask for flowers. Looking at the scene in the bird's nest, a soft smile appeared on Groot's face, and he was in a daze. Seeing this scene, Rocket Raccoon shook his head helplessly. Forget it, you can't even understand this if I tell you. As he said that, Rocket Raccoon lowered his head and looked at the message displayed on the screen, with a glimmer of excitement in his eyes. Godhead, if I have this, then can I? Not knowing what he thought of, Rocket Raccoon clenched his fists subconsciously. His originally cute face instantly turned extremely ferocious, and he instantly made up his mind. He immediately stood up, jumped off the boulder under him, and shouted in the direction of Groot. Groot! Stop playing, it's time for us to set off. Halt! Okay. We'll have a chance to come back next time, when we finish this job, let alone build nests for your little pets. Even if we buy this planet, it won't be a problem. Halt! It's definitely true. Do you see this? As long as we can find this thing called infinite gems, we can have whatever we want in the future. Do you understand? Halt! I knew you would agree. Rocket Raccoon quickly climbed up Groot's body, stood on his shoulders, and took out an energy weapon from nowhere. Violent fire flashed from the muzzle, and fired into the sky with an excited look on his face. Said, it's time to start working. Halt! Infinite gems, we must get it. Halt! Okay, let's go now. Deep in the universe, in an unknown corner, there's a huge amount of black hole located in it. Under the huge amounts of traction of the black hole, the surrounding area is nearly 1 light-year empty. All the original stars have been absorbed by the black hole, and no life exists. But if you pass through this black hole and come to the other end of the black hole, you will find that behind the black hole, a huge amount of planet is floating quietly in the universe, and its whole body is wrapped in layers of black, with a faint red color visible in it. And blue sparkle. Look closer. The Earth's rivers surround the surface of the planet, exuding the dazzling brilliance of life. This huge planet wrapped by a black hole is exactly the destination of Chen Luo's trip, Sakaar. Chapter 545, Part 1. Although he successfully obtained the location coordinates of Sakaar, what Chen Luo did not expect was that the planet was actually wrapped by a huge amount of black hole. Therefore, if he wanted to successfully reach the planet, he must first break through the black hole. Just defense. And this is why when Chen Luo activated the space gem, the divine power in his body was instantly drained away by it. Because it needs to break through the black hole's protection, the space gem needs more energy to directly pass through the black hole and open the portal in Sakaar. This is something Chen Luo did not expect when he decided to set off. Just when the portal opened, Chen Luo fell into a coma due to the excessive consumption of divine power in his body. If the portal had not opened in time and transferred him directly to Sakaar, I am afraid that Chen Luo would have turned into an ice sculpture forever, wandering in the universe. As the 807 portal closed, a figure fell from the sky above a huge amount of garbage dump in Sakaar, and then fell straight into a hill made of garbage below. It was instantly buried by countless garbage and disappeared. Not see. However, the loud sound that Chen Luo made when he landed still attracted the attention of the scavengers wandering around the garbage dump. They all turned their heads to look in the direction of the sound. They didn't know what they thought of, and a trace of greed appeared on their faces. With a look on his face, he hurried towards the direction of Chen Luo. A moment later, in the garbage hill where Chen Luo was, there were already dozens of figures surrounding him, looking at each other with wary eyes. In order to find enough supplies to live on this planet where strength is respected, the competition between this group of scavengers is extremely fierce, especially in this situation. These scavengers who have lived in the garbage dump all year round are very clear about the noise caused by Chen Luo's fall. Whenever there is such a noise, it means that somewhere in the universe, some unlucky person was accidentally created. It was absorbed by the channel and then transported to this planet. From then on, it was like they could no longer escape from here. And because of the huge pressure in this kind of passage, only those beings with at least extraordinary strength can barely pass through. The other beings with insufficient strength have long since fallen in the passage because they cannot withstand the pressure. But even if these people die, they may still have materials carried from extraterrestrial bodies. And these materials, even the corpses of those who died, are also the targets of scavengers. You must know that scavengers have accidentally discovered that a caravan from the Xander system was sucked into the channel before, because they were not strong enough to withstand the pressure inside the passage. Everyone in the fleet died after arriving at Sakaar, leaving only a large amount of supplies in the fleet that were picked up and imprisoned by scavengers, and they became rich overnight. It is precisely because of this precedent that after hearing this familiar sound, the nearby scavengers will take action after hearing the news and rush towards their destination. Definitely, except for those unlucky ones who have died long ago, there are also cases where those powerful people accidentally fall into the passage, but how can such a being fall into a place like a garbage dump? So for this point, there was no worry at all. After a moment of silence, finally, among the many scavengers, a tall figure with dark brown skin covering his whole body and looking like a stone man walked out and came to the crowd. "I, Thorn, want the things here." As soon as the words fell, the next moment, everyone looked at each other with a hint of fear in their eyes. "Thorn!" Someone looked gloomy and said dissatisfied. "We discovered the things here together. Why do you want to monopolize them?" Huh? Thorn suddenly turned his head, his eyes shot out with a flash of cold lightning. He looked straight at the other party and said with a ferocious smile, "Why, do you have any objections?" After saying that, Thorn strode forward, stretched out his right hand, and with an invisible force condensing, countless gray-white stones gathered in his hand, and finally formed a huge amount of rock fist. "Swing forward violently. If you have any opinions, go to hell and express your opinions again." The air exploded instantly under this attack, and a circle of white air waves visible to the naked eye spread rapidly in all directions. The space in front seemed to be exploded. In the blink of an eye, it came to the person who just spoke and instantly destroyed him. Hit. Boom. The next moment, the other party didn't even have time to say the last word. His body was instantly blasted into countless pieces by a punch, and he disappeared in front of everyone in an instant with blood raining all over the sky. The rain of blood fell on Thorn's body, which was like a body made of rock. The originally gray-white skin was instantly rendered with a layer of bright red, making him look extremely fierce. With lightning-like eyes, he glanced around. Thorn said with a ferocious smile, "Why, is there anyone still trying to rob me now?" Seeing the blood at the opponent's feet, the stadium instantly fell into a dead silence. Looking directly at the tall figure in front of them, everyone's eyes flashed with fear. "We are both scavengers in this garbage dump, and we naturally follow the law of survival of the weak and the strong in nature, and the Krunen star named Thorn in front of us is the existence at the top of the food chain in this garbage dump. Relying on its own powerful strength at the peak of the extraordinary, coupled with the naturally strong physique of the Krunen people, its strength cannot be underestimated in this garbage dump, or even in the entire Sakaar. Although they cannot be compared with those powerful demigod gladiators in the Gaotianzhen arena, there are only a few such existences after all, and in a place like a garbage dump, the other party disdains coming here. So here, Thorn's status is definitely that of the top few. As one of the 4 kings of this garbage dump, the place where Chen Luo landed happened to be the territory ruled by Thorn. Therefore, after learning that someone from the outside world had come to this planet, Thorn had already removed everything from the other party. If they all regard it as their own trophy, how can they share it with others? Especially 4.3, after seeing the scene just now, the original greed in the crowd disappeared instantly, and there was a bit of fear in the eyes looking at Thorn. Under the absolute force of shock, everyone did not even say a harsh word. If they dare to let go, they will immediately retreat and disappear in the blink of an eye. Seeing the others leaving, Thorn grinned and nodded with satisfaction. Then he turned to look at the garbage mountain in front of him, with a glimmer of expectation in his eyes. Without saying a word, he immediately prepared to search. "Hey, big man, please give me some space." Just when he was about to make a move, suddenly, a voice sounded from behind Thorn. Subconsciously, he turned his head and took a look. However, when Thorn saw clearly the appearance of the man behind him, his expression changed instantly, and he suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. Chapter 546, Part 1. Behind Thorn, there was a figure that looked like a human standing. He is about less than 1.7 meters tall, with dark brown skin. He is wearing a leather armor, and his long braid is swayed in the wind. He looks very cool. But then, when she took out the wine bottle behind her and took a big gulp, she saw a drunken blush suddenly appeared on the other person's face. His steps were swaying, and he looked like he was going to faint at any time. His eyes were hazy. Nothing offensive at all. But even so, when Thorn saw clearly the appearance of the man in front of him, his heart suddenly froze, and he subconsciously took a few steps back, his eyes full of wariness. "Valkyrie, why are you here?" Thorn is naturally familiar with the woman in front of him. After all, long before he came to Sakaar, the other party had been here for who knows how long. He is a well-deserved legend in this area, and even in the entire Sakaar. Even with Thorn's confidence, when facing such a legendary figure, he never thought that he would be his opponent. When he first came to Sakaar, Valkyrie was one of the gladiators in Gao Tianzuan's arena, and unlike the others, the opponent was a demigod-level gladiator. And he was the only one in the Arena 22. The female demigod who has achieved 10 consecutive victories has a qualitative gap with Thorn in terms of strength and status. Although Valkyrie withdrew from the gladiatorial arena for unknown reasons more than 100 years ago and has since been struggling as a lone ranger in Sakaar, but even so, Thorn still did not dare to have any wealth in his heart for such a legendary figure. Building. After a long burp, Valkyrie looked at the other party drunkenly, waved his hands casually, and said impatiently, "Don't you still understand? I'm interested in the things here. You'd better leave." VR. Thorn was furious, but when he thought of the opponent's strength, he finally suppressed his anger and said with a sullen face, "This is my territory, so you can't monopolize the things here. Half. The most I can give you is half. If you agree, then I..." "Stop talking nonsense." Before the other party could finish speaking, Valkyrie interrupted the other party with an impatient wave. He raised his head and looked at the other party. The drunkenness on his face dissipated instantly, and his dark eyes suddenly shot out a cold lightning, a powerful force. The momentum emerged from the body and instantly surrounded the opponent. The moment Valkyrie's semi-god level aura surged out, Thorn felt as if a heavy mountain was suddenly pressed on his body. The air around him solidified. Even breathing became a little difficult. His body trembled slightly. It was extremely difficult to move even a little bit. Feeling the terrifying oppression brought by the demigods for the first time, Thorn's eyes suddenly showed the same fear as those who left before. He did not dare to say anything more and turned sideways to make way for the other party. And when Valkyrie was walking towards the garbage mountain ahead, Thorn didn't stop here at all. Without saying a word, he immediately turned around and left quickly. Turning back and watching the other party's disappearing figure, Valkyrie took another sip of wine, shook her head, and said nothing more. He stamped his feet violently, and under its powerful force, the ground instantly began to tremble violently. The garbage mountain in front collapsed instantly, and countless garbage scattered, revealing the innermost scene. "Found it!" Through the barrier of the garbage in front, Valkyrie's eyes lit up as if he saw something. He strode forward, stretched out his hand to reach into the garbage pile in front, and then pulled hard, and a tall figure was instantly dragged out by him. "Oh, he's still a handsome guy." Looking at the appearance of the person in his hand, Valkyrie's eyes lit up, and she looked a little excited. Putting the person in his hand on the ground, Valkyrie could see the full picture of the person on the ground clearly. His tall and muscular body, his shirt has long been torn apart due to erosion in the cosmic environment, and his bare upper body is exposed to the air. His muscle lines are like knife carvings, like ancient Greek sculptures, giving people an inexplicable aura. Attraction, such an appearance, as well as the vague sense of threat she could still feel from him, even though he was unconscious, made her feel very good. She touched her chin and murmured with a satisfied smile on her face, "I'm really lucky today. I can find such a harvest." Unlike Thorn and other scavengers just now, as a demigod-level existence, Valkyrie knew very well that the man in front of him was not like the unlucky ones they had met before, who had already died when he came to this planet. Your wealth can only be accessed by others. On the contrary, she could clearly feel the strong vitality dormant in the other party's body. Under the nourishment of this vitality, the other party's injuries were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Through the occasional breath coming from the other party, Valkyrie is even more convinced that the person in front of her is definitely a strong man who has stepped into the ranks of the demigod Koji. According to the opponent's current recovery speed, I am afraid that as long as he is given another half hour or so, his injuries will be fully recovered. Once he wakes up, if they find out what Thorn's scavengers did to him, I am afraid that those people will he will be wiped out by the powerful demigod in front of him in a short time, and there will be no possibility of escape. So what she did just now seemed like she was snatching away the other party's trophies, but actually speaking of it, it's not an exaggeration to say that she saved those people's lives. Definitely, this matter was just a matter of convenience. In fact, her main goal was Chen Luo himself, who was currently in a coma. As her palm turned over, a device no more than half the size of a file appeared in her hand. The device looks ordinary, but it is a demigod-level controller that is rare in the entire Sakaar. As long as it is installed on a strong person at the demigod level, once the control button is pressed, the device will release extremely powerful energy. Electric current instantly knocks out the powerful demigod. The reason why this kind of controller can have the ability to harm the powerful people at the demigod level is because it comes from the hands of the real owner of this planet, Gao Tianzuan. I don't know what means this god-level being used to store a trace of his divine power in a small controller. With this kind of energy level, even just such a ray of divine power is enough to attack a demigod. Cause some damages. Because it was made by Gao Tianzuan himself, the output of this kind of controller is not very high. Apart from his usual use, there are only a few of them lying around, and Valkyrie happens to have such one in his hand. Although the controller in her hand is very precious, when she thinks that she will soon be able to successfully capture a powerful demigod with such a harvest, as long as she successfully sells him to the arena, the reward she can get will be enough to make up for it. Her loss. Thinking of this, Valkyrie suddenly felt very good, and Chen Luo's eyes became more pleasing to the eye when she looked at the ground. Well, wait. There seems to be an extra bonus. At this time, Valkyrie's eyes fell on Chen Luo's right hand. Her eyes narrowed slightly, and a bit of surprise suddenly flashed on her face. Chapter 547, Part 1. I don't know how much time passed, but finally, as his injuries completely recovered, Chen Luo's body was shaken, and he slowly opened his eyes. As soon as he opened his eyes, the dazzling golden light in front of him suddenly made his vision blurred. After a while to adapt, Chen Luo finally saw the surrounding scene clearly. Friend, it seems you are finally awake. The next moment, a very enthusiastic voice sounded in his ears. Subconsciously, he turned his head and saw that next to Chen Luo, on a golden bench that looked extremely luxurious, a figure slowly stood up, looked at himself, and said with a smile on his face. The other party was wearing a luxurious robe of gold and blue, and his appearance was very similar to that of a human being. The only difference from normal humans was that the other party's face was covered with oil paint of different colors, which made him look a little bit extra weird and funny. Seeing the other party's appearance, Chen Luo frowned and asked in a deep voice, "Who are you?" The visitor walked up to Chen Luo and walked around Chen Luo, looking up and down, nodding from time to time with a look of satisfaction in his eyes. Looking at the other party's eyes as if he was looking at the goods, Chen Luo felt angry and was about to get up. However, the next moment, a huge force came from his limbs and instantly restrained him tightly. Unable to move at all. "Handsome guy, don't get stuck. Just accept your fate." Valkyrie's voice came from behind Chen Luo, and she patted Chen Luo's shoulders hard with both hands, with a smile on her face. "By the way, if you don't know what's going on here, let me introduce it to you. The person in front of you, this arena? No, it should be the owner of this planet, the legendary powerful man at the god level, Gao Tianzuan." As soon as he finished speaking, Chen Luo's movements froze, and he looked in the direction of Gao Tianzuan, and his heart was shocked. But before giving Chen Luo a chance to speak, Valkyrie continued. "Definitely, you don't have to be too surprised, believe me. You will see him often in the future, so it's better to adapt as soon as possible. After all, you will have a new job soon. If you disappoint His Excellency Gao Tianzuan, you don't want to see the consequences." Hearing this, Chen Luo's pupil shrank, turned to look at the other person, and asked, "What do you mean? What kind of work do I want to do? Let me explain it to you." At this time, Gao Tianzuan on the side finally spoke. Arriving in front of Chen Luo, Gao Tianzuan nodded with satisfaction. His eyes looking at Chen Luo couldn't help but become a little softer, and he said with a smile, "Maybe you don't know yet, but just now, the beauty next to you. Oh, by the way, I forgot to introduce her to you." After saying that, Gao Tianzuan patted his forehead, pointed behind Chen Luo, and introduced, "This beauty's name is Valkyrie. She was a member of the Asgard Valkyrie, but now she works for me. As for the work content, I believe you have also seen that Valkyrie has sold you to me just now. So now you are my private property. It's been a long time since I met a new face like you, and you're so young." Speaking of this, Gao Tianzuan's eyes flashed, and he looked at Chen Luo with a little more admiration. "Boy, if I'm right, it shouldn't take more than 100 years for you to become a demigod. You can grow to your current level in such a short period of time. It seems that your potential is far from reaching your own level. The limit is right." When the other party finished speaking, Chen Luo was not surprised. After all, the other party said this because he was a god-level being. It was normal to be able to see part of his information, but this was not the case for Valkyrie. Hearing that it took less than 100 years for Chen Luo to grow into a demigod, Valkyrie opened her eyes and finally looked at Chen Luo with a little more emotion. As a powerful demigod, she knows very well how difficult it is to grow to this level. Even among the Aesir clan, who are physically much stronger than other races in the universe, the number of people who can truly become demigods is very small. It may take tens or even millions of people to give birth to a demigod. Compared with other races, this ratio is undoubtedly much stronger, but the population base of the Aesir clan is there. Over the long years, the total number of demigods in Asgard has never exceeded the number of 10. The difficulty is evident, and even for the most capable being among the Aesir clan, it would take at least 1,000 years for him to become a demigod. This is the same even for Odin, the God King. It stands to reason that it takes thousands of years to grow into a demigod-level powerhouse. This growth rate is already amazing enough. Compared with other demigods in the universe, it is definitely among the fastest. However, in front of Chen Luo, such achievements seem a bit depressing. Out of color, he can become a demigod in less than 100 years. She has never heard of such a growth rate before. He can achieve such an achievement in such a short time. If he is given more time, 100 years, 1,000 years, to what level will he grow? Just thinking about these 10 points makes Valkyrie feel frightened. There is no doubt that with Chen Luo's growth rate, his potential is endless. If he is given enough time, he may be able to grow to the level of a god in the future. Thinking of this, Valkyrie's eyes changed instantly when she looked at Chen Luo. While her heart was filled with shock, she couldn't help but feel a bit regretful. If she had known that this new demigod had such potential, she would never have chosen to sell him directly as a commodity. If the other party has the opportunity to leave the arena and come to settle accounts with her in the future, how should she resist? It's not surprising that Valkyrie has such worries. After all, Chen Luo has grown into a demigod in just a few years. In addition, now that he has come to the arena, as long as he goes through a series of fights, his strength will definitely improve rapidly in a short period of time. By then, as long as he leaves the arena and comes to trouble her, with her strength, she may not be confident that she can escape from Chen Luo. Just when Valkyrie was secretly having a headache over this, after listening to Gao Tianzuan's words, Chen Luo finally realized what his current situation was. Not surprisingly, after realizing that he was being traded as goods by Valkyrie, a cold light flashed in Chen Luo's eyes and murderous intent surged in his heart, but he quickly disappeared. So, what if he wants to kill the other party now? With his current situation, even taking action would be troublesome and might cause unnecessary troubles. Instead of doing this, it would be better to endure it for a while and wait until later. Find an opportunity to get out from here. Then, he was thinking about his future plan, but when Chen Luo glanced at his right hand unintentionally, his expression suddenly changed, and he suddenly turned his head to look behind him, looking at Valkyrie firmly, and said in a deep voice, "Where are my things?" Chapter 548, Part 1. Awakened by Chen Luo's words, Valkyrie looked at Chen Luo's right hand and understood immediately. As she rolled her eyes, she had an idea in her mind. "I do have the stuff here." She nodded first and said firmly. Seeing the other party's answer, Chen Luo's heart suddenly sank, and his face instantly became ugly. Just now, he noticed that the infinity gauntlet in his hand had disappeared without a trace. Thinking that he had fallen into the other party's hands before he fell in a coma, there was a high probability that his gauntlet was taken away by the other party. Now that he had admitted it, Chen Luo looked ugly and couldn't help but feel upset secretly. Because he had the space gem in hand, when he was planning to set off for Sakar, he never thought that such an accident would happen to him. If he had known that such a situation would happen, he might as well have found another method. You must know that based on his current relationship with Asgard, if he proposed to borrow Bifrost once, Heimdall would not refuse even if he thought about it. Even if the coordinates of Sakar were deliberately hidden due to the existence of Gao Tianzuan. As long as Chen Luo could provide the corresponding coordinates, with the power of Bifrost, it will not be difficult to successfully arrive. If he had come here through the power of Bifrost 843, he would not have fallen into a coma due to exhaustion of his divine power, and was later arrested and sold to the arena. Although entering the arena was originally the purpose of his trip, but through this method was completely unexpected by Chen Luo. Just when Chen Luo was secretly annoyed, suddenly, Valkyrie's voice sounded again. "But you don't have to worry." Valkyrie patted his chest and said with a smile on his face, "Put your things here for safekeeping first, and I will return them to you when you come out of here. Even though you are now a member of the Gladiators, it does not mean that you have no possibility of regaining your freedom. As long as you can fulfill His Excellency Gao Tianzuan's request, then in return, he will grant you a wish." With that said, Valkyrie turned to look at Gao Tianzuan aside and said in a respectful tone, "This has been the rule since you founded the arena. Am I right, Your Excellency Gao Tianzuan?" Hearing this, Chen Luo's expression changed, and his gaze moved in the direction of Gao Tianzuan, asking, "Is she telling the truth? Is it really possible for me to leave here?" "This is definitely." Gao Tianzuan nodded lightly, with an inexplicable smile on his face. "But if you want to fulfill my request, it is not a simple task. Young demigod, are you really ready? As long as you can meet my requirements, then I can fulfill one of your wishes, whether it is the freedom you want or something else. As long as it is within the scope of my ability, I can help you achieve it. But in return, you will fight as my gladiator for the next 100 years. If you die in the process, everything will be taken away from you and belong to others. How about this? Do you accept this condition?" After saying this, Gao Tianzuan looked at Chen Luo with a smile on his face, his eyes full of determination, and he did not think that the other party would refuse the offer he made. To be honest, the conditions just offered by Gao Tianzuan are actually very loose. Take the previous Valkyrie distance as a condition for leaving the arena, where she has served Gao Tianzuan for hundreds of years. Finally left the arena after going through all kinds of hardships. The time that Chen Luo now has to stay in the arena is several times shorter than the former, which shows that Gao Tianzuan has a special regard for Chen Luo, a young demigod. Like Valkyrie, just now, Gao Tianzuan was also a little amazed that Chen Luo could successfully break through to the demigod level in such a short period of time. Although judging from the long years he has experienced in this universe, such examples have also existed in the past, but such existences are still in the minority after all. Keki, and whenever such beings appear, they are able to make rapid progress in a short period of time, and their strength increases by leaps and bounds. As long as no accidents occur, they will eventually grow to the peak of demigods, or even break through to the level of gods. Therefore, in the face of such potential huge amounts of young demigods, even Gao Tianzuan, who is a powerful god, is willing to give Chen Luo a face and deliberately shortens the number of years he can regain his freedom. In terms of lifespan, a mere 100 years will pass by in the blink of an eye. However, just when Gao Tianzuan was confident that Chen Luo would not reject his proposal, Chen Luo's next answer was somewhat beyond his expectation. If I want to leave here earlier, what other way is there? Although Chen Luo also admitted that the conditions offered by the other party were pretty good. If he has nothing else to do, it would be a good choice to stay here and fight for a long time to continuously improve his strength. But he has never forgotten that in the next few years, Thanos will officially start to implement his plan. If you don't stop the cosmic family planning operation and let the other party succeed, what will happen to you and your relatives and friends? Thinking of this, Chen Luo suddenly felt a sense of urgency in his heart. What? You can't accept it in 100 years? Hearing this, Gao Tianzuan frowned and looked at Chen Luo unkindly. Young demigod, you should know the conditions I gave you are generous enough, but if it were someone else, it wouldn't be so easy. Your Excellency Gao Tianzuan. Chen Luo nodded slightly to show respect. I am very grateful for your generosity, but please forgive me for having to leave early. As long as I can be freed in advance, I am willing to accept all your arrangements. Seeing the sincerity on Chen Luo's face, the anger on Gao Tianzuan's face gradually dissipated. He looked at the other person deeply, pondered for a moment, and then said, if you want to leave early, it's not impossible, but it's not as simple as you think to meet the conditions for leaving. At least among all my gladiators before, no one has ever achieved it. I don't think even you will return the favor. Hearing this, Valkyrie behind Chen Luo seemed to have thought of something, and her expression suddenly changed. She approached Chen Luo and reminded in a low voice, hey, don't agree to this. If you agree, I'm afraid that in another month, I will have to go to the garbage dump to collect the body for you. Do you understand? Chen Luo frowned slightly and did not answer immediately. Instead, he raised his head and looked in the direction of Gao Tianzuan and asked in a deep voice, Your Excellency Gao Tianzuan, what exactly is this case? It's very simple. Gao Tianzuan had an inexplicable smile on his face and immediately started to explain.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and give this video a like to stay updated on all the latest content. You can find the next videos in the playlist linked in the info card or directly on my channel. But for now I've caught up to the author. With the series coming to an end, now's the perfect time to share your suggestions for the next one. Just drop the name of the novel and the website it's on in the comments. I'd love to hear your ideas. And as always, if you have any feedback, feel free to share it in the comments too.